This is 98.9 DYUP Sugbo, the official campus radio of the University of the Philippines, Cebu. DYUP Sugbo operates 3 hours and 30 minutes daily and is streamed online on DYUP Sugbo, our official Facebook page, and on DYUP Sugbo, UP Cebu's YouTube channel. Our radio booth is located in the radio room of the College of Communication, Art and Science undergraduate building at the University of the Philippines, Cebu, Burordo Avenue, Lahog, Cebu City. DYUP Sugbo is operated and maintained under the management of Gwyneth Antinga, Station Manager, along with Gabriel Emmanuel Sulamo, Assistant Internal Station Manager, and Rain Isabel Filizarta, Assistant External Station Manager. DYUP Sugbo is technically managed by its technical committee under the supervision of Caleb Josh Berandoy and Yeda Marie Lambujon. The technical heads, DYUP Sugbo's programs are produced and curated by the programming committee under the supervision of Franz Pauline Aberilla and Jared Owen Eagle, the programming heads. DYUP Sugbo's official Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify accounts are run by the publicity committee under Steffi Erika Gaki and Stephen Cuevas, the publicity heads. DYUP Sugbo's records and documents are managed by Ritricia Llagas, Secretary. DYUP Sugbo's Executive Committee, Technical Committee, Programming Committee, and Publicity Committee are under the supervision of Sir Maurice Chete Villaester, DYUP's advisor. DYUP Sugbo 98.9, Kauban Nimo, is now signing on.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, kaya sa sinangalan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa mandulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatang putok sa simoy at sa langit ng pangaw, ay hinatang tulakaw,
stopping now. Can you hear the beat blasted out? Tune in here for a great surprise. Ride the airwaves and come realize.
There's a lot to learn and much to see. Come be updated here in UPC. Turn your radio on and find your way. DYUP's here to save the day.
DYUP, kauban mo. You will never be alone. Bringing you the hottest, latest in the zone. DYUP, kauban mo. DYUP, kauban mo. You will never be alone. Bringing you the hottest, latest in the zone. DYUP, kauban mo.
If the world's heavy, don't give up. Raise your voice, find and do not stop.
Yes, we hear you, you are not alone. Radio's not dead, yes, we are on.
DYUP kauban nimo.
Bisan asa man kamo adto, music o balita nga ba?
Adi akini para sa imo, maskin ikaw lang usa.
Daghan o bisag asa.
DYUP di kabyaan, andam kang pagsilbihan.
There's a lot to learn and much to see. Come be updated here in UPC. Turn your radio on and find your way. DYUP's here to save the day.
DYUP, kauban mo. You will never be alone. Bringing you the hottest, latest in the zone. DYUP, kauban mo. DYUP, kauban mo. You will never be alone. Bringing you the hottest, latest in the zone. DYUP, kauban mo.
Kauban mo.
Kauban mo. Kauban mo. DYUP, kauban mo.
From the University of the Philippines Cebu Radio Booth in service of the people. This is 98.9 DYUP Sugbo, kauban nimo.
Maayong adlaw UP Cebu. I am Omi Igon and you're listening to Sayayo UP Cebu, the beat of campus, the pulse of news. For the headlines, groups urge government to save Tanyuan Strait. Mabilog reveals plans to implicate Rodrigo Duterte's political opponents. 1081 exhibit features martial law atrocities, calls for continued resistance. Melvin Jerusalem vows to defend belt versus Luis Castillo. Rising girl group Cat's Eye dominates mall showcase. Today is Friday, September 20, 2024. Time check. It's 10:34 in the morning. Maayong adlaw UP Cebu. Good morning UP. Let's continue our commemoration of and sensitivity for today, as it is the second day of martial law commemoration in UP Cebu. That being said, the 1081 exhibit. As we navigate through this day, we encourage everyone to attend the activities prepared by the 1081 exhibit for day 2. That's why let us all be mindful of today's significance. Now for our top stories. Groups urge government to save Tanyon Strait. Multi-sectoral groups from Cebu and Negros have launched the Save Tanyon Strait campaign, opposing the expansion of Aboitiz Therma Visayas coal-fired power plant in Toledo City, Cebu. The Tanyon Strait, a protected marine area home to various marine species, faces potential harm from the proposed Unit 3 expansion. Bishop Gerardo Alminaza of San Carlos Diocese highlighted the environmental risks and called for government leaders to protect the seascape. Activists argue that coal is unreliable and costly, contributing to higher electricity prices and harming marine ecosystems. The coalition stresses that the expansion violates the Department of Energy's coal moratorium and urges leaders to uphold a coal phase-out. Aboitiz has yet to issue a statement. And now for the national news. Former Mayor of Iloilo Mabilog reveals plans to implicate Rodrigo Duterte's political opponents. Iloilo City Mayor Jed Patrick Mabilog raises concerns over alleged political abuse of law enforcement in the country, implying that the Philippine National Police or PNP, along with Rodrigo Duterte, was involved in a plan to implicate former presidential candidate Mar Rojas and Senator Franklin Drilon in a drug scheme. Mabilog claims that despite attempts to meet then-President Duterte to clarify the drug allegations against him, the opportunity was never granted. Furthermore, Mabilog alleges that he was invited to meet with the former PNP chief, now Senator Bato de la Rosa, but received a phone call that he would be killed if he did so. Mabilog went on to say he later received a phone call from Senator Bato de la Rosa saying that he believed in Mabilog's innocence. However, before he could return home from his work trip to seek help from the former PNP chief, Mabilog received a call that told him he would be killed if he did not implicate former presidential candidate and opposition senator as drug lords. After that call, he immediately flew to the United States from Japan and was granted political asylum. Mabilog returned to the Philippines on the 10th of September to clear his name. And now for our UP Cebu news, more 1081 updates. 1081 exhibit features martial law atrocities, calls for continued resistance. We have here Hannah Gresha for the update.
Law under the Marcos Sr. dictatorship, the University of the Philippines Cebu, led by the communicators of UP, launched its annual 1081 exhibit yesterday with the theme Tagubtob sa Kamatuuran, Remember, Reveal, Resist, emphasizing the resistance against all forms of oppression and tyranny. The opening event included a play by UP students' Theater Arts Guild for Education, depicting stories of desaparecidos during martial law. The students then staged a lightning rally demanding a free press and justice for political prisoners. A ribbon-cutting ceremony took place at the UP Cebu Museum of Culture and Arts, marking the formal opening of the 1081 exhibit, which will be open to the public until September 22. A panel discussion was also hosted at the Performing Arts Hall, while Lawak Sinihan organized 2 film screenings featuring the documentary Samasa. The events for this year's 1081 commemoration will run until Sunday, and the cultural night will take place later at the Sunset Garden. This has been Hannah Grasha Bayon, DYUP Sugbo, kauban nimo.
Don't leave our broadcast just yet, as we will talk more about the 1081 protest action featuring our special guest. Stay tuned for more updates.
brilliant idea to make a positive impact? Tulad ng automated audio learning platform o digital museum, o kaya isang academic collaboration app? Calling innovators, entrepreneurs, and inventors na may passion for driving positive change. Red Bull Basement is back for 2024. 40 teams, thousands of ideas, and one world final sa Tokyo, Japan. Enter your idea to develop your business plan accelerated by AI technology for a chance to get advice and input on your development from experts along the way.
An idea that starts in your dorm room can help millions of people. You really do have the power to change the world.
The world is waiting for people like us.
Ang sarap ng pagkain ko ngayon. Gulay sa lugaw. At sabi mo, Nay, mabuti ito para sa akin. Iba't ibang pagkain nga ang hinahanda mo para sa akin. Pakukuluan mo muna, tapos dudurugin. At ihahalo sa malapot na lugaw. Nay, bukas po, gulay ulit ha?
And now we're back and you're still listening to Sayayo UP Cebu. Time check, it's 10:41 in the morning. And we have here our special guest. Welcome to Sayayo, Dorothy Shane Pradas. She is the Vice Chairperson for Internal Affairs from the Communicators of UP, or COMUP, and the Protest Action Head for 1081.
Hello, Ami. Thank you for inviting me here. And thank you so much for providing me this platform in order for me to speak about our upcoming events for today.
All right, first of all, congratulations for the success of day 1 of 1081 exhibit. For the benefit of our listeners, can you tell us more about your role as a protest action head and what is the event all about?
Well, first of all, as protest action head, my role is not limited to organizing the cultural night. I know that it is one of the highlights of the 1081 exhibit, but as the protest action head, I am tasked to oversee the any form of protest that we are conducting during the 1081 event. So one of them is actually the lightning rally that occurred yesterday during the opening program. So for today, as the protest action head, I am also in charge of heading the cultural night. So in organizing the cultural night, I wanted to see something that is different and somewhat palatable to our prospect audience, which is the youth. So I wanted this form of protest through conducting a cultural night. I wanted to be more creative and more sort of like attractive to the younger audience, especially with our performances. Rather, with Upstage, we have performances with Tinta and with Sayawe. Other than that, we also have speakers from NUJP, and we also have one speaker, Chris Bayaga, from our very own Lanog. He will also be speaking during the cultural night as well to provide perspective of what we can do as the youth, especially as journalists as well. What we can do in terms of, especially at the time of political unrest right now that we are facing in our country. So with that said, we also have another speaker, a special message from Attorney Ruben Carranza. He is actually, it will actually be a pre-recorded speech, as he is currently not with us here in the Philippines, but he is in New York right now. It's very important that through this form, through this cultural night, and like through these speeches, we can reach out to the youth and to sort of like give them a different perspective, and like to sort of give them that knowledge and that information that sort of will inspire them to be able to be more participative and be more aware of the political environment today, and that they could also sort of like gain sort of an advice from people who are actually already in the field and people who are already participating, actively participating rather in fighting against the disinformation and misinformation that is going rampant during.
All right.
Yes.
So you've mentioned that this protest action event sort of is a collection of different forms of protest, right?
Yes.
So can we dig deep into what are these forms of protest as you mentioned earlier?
So we will also be diving into the use of art and performance as a way of protest, and that with using this ang sining at ang kultura, we can actually see how they are actually very significant key factors in terms of like spreading awareness towards the people and especially towards the youth. And additionally, we will also be having a rally which will be happening today during the cultural night. And additionally, we will also be having the candle vigil to honor and to commemorate the martial law victims.
All right. So I would just like to know, as the head of this initiative, this committee, how do you see protest as an essential form of resistance, especially in this current time wherein our political climate is really at stake?
Yes, well, I know that when people hear the word protest, it can somewhat sound intimidating. But what I'm trying to do here as the protest action head is that I want to sort of share the message that protest can actually come in like different forms through any form of resistance, which is simply as being aware, simply with making yourself knowledgeable with the current issues that are going around today and especially in the past. So this also includes like attending educational discussions, participating in panel discussions where you can actively engage with the information that is not necessarily always available on the internet, as there is a lot of suppression that is going on with the sort of information, or like especially with our history. And so with that, with doing such, with participating with these activities, you're already participating in the resistance. You're already participating in a sort of in a form of protest.
All right.
Yes.
So with that being said, you've shared about the flow of the event later of our cultural night. Would you like to plug in some of your socials, or what message do you want to give to our listeners right now?
Okay, so first of all, I would like to plug the 1081 exhibit social media. So we are currently available. You can check out our page rather in Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at 1081 exhibit. So any message that I would like to give to our audience is to basically just not be afraid. In terms of protest, it shouldn't be something that is intimidating at the first place. While it can be intimidating in the sense that it matters a lot, but it shouldn't be intimidating because you are scared of being suppressed and you're scared of being antagonized. So, mura na siya kung maingon.
All right, because especially in these crucial times, we as students should be more aware and should be more open to these kind of discussions and be more vigilant when it comes to receiving information that we gathered from different sources. All right, thank you so much, Dorothy Shane Pradas, the VC for Internal Affairs of ComUp, or Communicators of UP, and the Protest Action Head for 1081. And now for the latest chicas in the world of entertainment. Rising girl group Cat's Eye dominates mall showcase. We have Ann Cash on the report.
Cat's Eye is not so out of touch anymore. Overwhelmed, grateful, and teary-eyed. These were the words of Cat's Eye members thanking their Filipino fans who watched their performance on Ayala Market Activity Center last September 18. The Global Girl Group's leader and fellow kababayan, Sofia La Forteza, expressed that the group is also extremely thankful for the fans' huge support, filling up the mall with loud chants and cheers. She also shared that her fellow members had a feast in her Pinoy household, eating delicacies such as balut, sinigang, and strawberry taho. Cat's Eye became an overnight sensation after they released their mega hit song Touch, which has accumulated over 100 million listens from all over social media. Have you guys hopped on the TikTok trend already? This has been Ann Cash, DYUP Sugbo, kauban nimo.
And now for the recap. Groups urged government to save Tanyon Strait. Mabilog revealed plans to implicate Rodrigo Duterte's political opponents. 1081 exhibit Day 1 featured martial law atrocities, calls for continued resistance. Melvin Jerusalem vowed to defend belt versus Luis Castillo. Rising girl group Cat's Eye dominated mall showcase. And those were the top stories for today. Now, for my experience during the 1081 exhibit Day 1, actually I'm one of the officers of communicators of UP, so I help organize the opening program, and then in the afternoon we had a panel discussion at the Performing Arts Hall, and then simultaneously we had a film showing. Day 1 of our film showing, we premiered Samasa 2024 by Psyche Productions, and we still have this Day 2 of film showing still at Lawak Sinihan at the same time, 2:30 to 5 p.m. And then the cultural night, as mentioned by Dorothy earlier, which will happen in the afternoon. And now, in commemoration of martial law and to stand with the victims of the oppressive regime, let us have a moment of silence. Once again, this has been Omi Igot. Thank you for listening to Sai Ayu UP Cebu, the beat of campus, the pulse of news. You've been listening to 98.9 DYUP Sugbo, kauban nimo.
DYUP kauban nimo.
Trigger warning. The following reading contains violent content which may be too intense for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Tagubtob sa kamatuoran. Remember, reveal, resist. Ato ang pagapaminawon ang mga sugilanon sa mga biktima nga miharap sa mga adlaw sa kahadlok ug pangdaog-daog sa martial law. Ang ilang mga kasinatian nagpadayag sa tinuod nga nahitabo ug pinaagi sa paghandom sa ilang mga sakripisyo dili lang nato atubangon ang brutal nga mga kamatuoran sa atong kasaysayan, kundili gipamatud-an usab nato ang atong pasalig nga lig-ong mubarog batok sa bisan unsang matang sa pagpanglupig. Karon, paminawon kanato ang istorya ug kaagi ni Francisco Bimbo Fernandez.
2 military trucks are on the way. Remembering what happened on September 23, 1972, these were the words of a sugar worker who woke Francisco Bimbo Fernandez up. He was then asleep, also recalling that the night before he had a meeting with some sugar workers to prepare for their confrontation with the farm manager, saying that they should be ready, especially with the warning that martial law was imminent. But what led to this moment? He was then 21 years old. After dropping out from a seminary, he headed for Bais, where he joined the local activist Concerted Action Group. With very few resources, they declared a citywide strike of sugar workers. Two memories remain vivid. One was when the goons shot at them, where a sugar worker on his left was killed and a volunteer on his right was hit in the head. The other event was when they declared a citywide protest and paralyzed the entire city, with market vendors and tricycle drivers fully supporting them. With their extensive and deep connections, they decided to organize a political party, Partido Cabus, or the Poor People's Party. But on election day, they could not stand the goons of the hacienderos, and they lost. It was only more than 6 months later when they again attempted to reorganize Bais. Unfortunately, even before martial law was announced, 2 truckloads of soldiers came to arrest them. But they were not ready. He, together with his friends, did not know what to do. They scrambled and fled to the mountains. And on October 4th, he got arrested and detained with common criminals in the Negros Oriental Provincial Jail. He was detained for 6 months. He admitted that his story is different because unlike fathers Ben Alforque and Pix Picardal in Cebu, he was not tortured. He was mauled once, but most times he was treated well. The criminal prisoners and the prison guards have heard of what they have done for the sugar workers in Bais. Life in jail was fairly comfortable for him. He had many friends, played basketball every day, learned mahjong, and his food was even better than the meals with sugar workers, especially during the strike. But what was painful was the thought that their dream for a better life for the sugar workers may no longer be. And worst, this disgrace of their dignity and humanity was deceptively clothed with the claim that martial law was to create a new society that would eliminate poverty, hunger, corruption, and violence, and that martial law was a revolution of the poor. His experiences left him with 2 messages. One, on how non-governmental organizations must influence the government, and 2, Marcos could not fool the people all the time. It took a long time and many had to sacrifice, some with their lives, but in the end, people woke up. Hopefully, the people will still wake up from this deja vu.
Sa atong paghandom sa martial law, kining mga istorya sa mga biktima ang atong pagabitbiton, nga magpahinumdum kanato sa mga adlaw sa kadulom ug pagpakigbisog. Ang ilang mga istorya nga kaniadto gipahilom karon nagbarog isip usa ka gamhanan nga tawag sa paghinumdum sa nangagi, pagpadayag sa mga tinago nga kamatuoran ug pagsukol sa mga puwersa nga naghulga sa atong kagawasan. Ang ilang mga tingog bisan pa sa pagkahugno, magpabilin nga usa ka masilay nga syagit sa paglaom ug kaisog. Ipakita nato ang mga istorya aron mapukaw ang atong pagpanaw sa kagawasan ug mga katungod. Trigger warning. The following reading contains violent content which may be too intense for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Tagubtob sa kamatuoran. Remember, reveal, resist. Ato ang pagapaminawon ang mga sugilanon sa mga biktima nga miharap sa mga adlaw sa kahadlok ug pangdaog-daog sa martial law. Ang ilang mga kasinatian nagpadayag sa tinuod nga nahitabo ug pinaagi sa paghandom sa ilang mga sakripisyo. Dili lang nato atubangon ang brutal nga mga kamatuoran sa atong kasaysayan, kundili gipamatud-an usab nato ang atong pasalig nga lig-ong mubarog batok sa bisan unsang matang sa pagpanglupig. Karon, paminahon kanato ang istorya ug kaagi ni Dr. Russell B. Mujares.
Russell B. Mujares was a journalist from Cebu who one day found himself swept into the turbulence of martial law. This was a time when dissent was dangerous, especially for those who wrote about the truth, as truth was often buried with those who dared to share it. It was during the early days of when President Marcos declared martial law that Mujares was invited by military intelligence agents to Camp Serio Osmeña, a euphemism that masks the harsh reality he was to face. His crime? Writing columns in the Freeman that were critical of the government. Mujares was also associated with militant student groups like Kabataang Makabayan and Samahang Demokratikong Kabataan. In the eyes of the regime, he was a voice that needed to be silenced. But Mujares' experience was unlike the harsher stories that echoed across the country. Cebu was in a hotbed of rebellion, so his captivity felt strangely different. He wasn't thrown into a dark, cramped cell. Instead, he and other political detainees were housed in soldiers' barracks. They could have visitors, eat better meals brought by their families, and even, on rare occasions, get day passes to leave the camp under guard. It was a surreal existence where freedom and confinement seemed to blend together. After just 2.5 months, Mujares was released, lucky by many standards. Still, this isn't to say that he is now completely free. Even after his release, he was kept on a tight leash, with limits on where he could go and what he could say. Dr. Mujares, an esteemed national artist of the Philippines for literature, shares a profound insight about martial law. He sees it as a means for isolating citizens through the elimination of press freedom, effectively spreading fear. He observed that despite prior conversations about martial law, the lack of precedents left people unprepared for its sudden implementation. During its dark days, the repression of press freedom intensified isolation and fear. However, Mujares feels that print journalism, despite its slower pace and limited reach when compared to electronic media, may combat the sense of isolation created by martial law through promoting discussion, reflection, and depth while cultivating. However, Mujares feels that print journalism, despite its slower pace, Mujares feels that print journalism, despite its slower pace and limited reach when compared to electronic media, may combat the sense of isolation created by martial law through promoting discussion, reflection, and depth while cultivating a sense of community. However, Mujares feels that print journalism, despite its slower pace and limited reach when compared to electronic media, may combat the sense of isolation.
We wouldn't even be here right now.
Discussion, reflection, and depth while cultivating a sense of community and informed discourse. Print journalism builds deep relationships with an established community of readers that are critical in maintaining communication and solidarity among individuals during repressive regimes.
Sa atong paghandom sa martial law, kining mga istorya sa mga biktima ang atong pagabitbiton. Nga magpahinumdum kanato sa mga adlaw sa kadulong ug pagpakigbisog. Ang ilang mga istorya nga kaniadto gipahilom karon nagbarog isip usa ka gamhanan nga tawag sa paghinumdum sa nangagi. pagpadayag sa mga tinago nga kamatuoran, ug pagsukol sa mga puwersa nga naghulga sa atong kagawasan. Ang ilang mga tingog, bisan pa sa pagkahugno, magpabilin nga usa ka masilay nga syagit sa paglaom ug kaisog. Ipakita nato ang mga istorya aron mapukaw ang atong pagpanaw sa kagawasan ug mga katungod.
Kay taas ng pader sa aking paligid.
Poems, short stories, and all things literature. Serving you literary delights. Storybites, bite-sized tales, endless possibilities.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Storybites. As a commemoration of the people who fought against the injustices of the government and the cruelty that the victims faced during the Marcos regime, this episode will tackle literary works about Proclamation 1081, infamously known as the Martial Law Act. The first literary work is an excerpt from Luwalhati Bautista's novel entitled Desaparecidos, that is going to be read by Seidel. And the second literary work is a poem entitled Prometheus Unbound by Ruben Cuevas, to be read by yours truly, Natalie. As we read these works, may we request everyone to listen intently and reflect. Thank you.
Pumipisik ang liwanag sa mga siwang ng takip ng copying machine, kasabay ng tila humming na ugong nito. Sinasalo ng takdang lalagyan ng mga kopya ng form na pare-pareho lang naman ang nakasulat. Name, age, address, sex. At sa ibaba nito, bago ang pinakamalaking espasyo, describe in detail circumstances surrounding arrest, death, torture, disappearance. Walang kurap si Ana sa pagkakatitig sa mga form na iniluluwa ng copying machine. Paano niya i-describe ang pagkakahuli kay Nonong? Simple, inabangan ng mga sundalo sa pupuntahan niya. Matagal nang tinitiktikan si Nonong. Pinatay ito sa isang masikip, malamok, madilim na silid na tulad ng lugar kung saan pinatay rin ang kanyang ama. Saka pinalabas na napatay sa engkwentro. Pero ang detalye ng buhay niya, mahirap i-describe. Kailangan mong isa-isahin, umpisahan sa simula. Umpisahan ba sa mismong gabi na ibinaba ang martial law? O sa panahong mas maaga pa roon? Kung paanong sila, na matatalinong estudyante ng panahon, ay tinangay ng agos ng aktivismo. Kung paanong marami sa kanila ang unti-unting namulat sa mga prinsipyong ipinakipaglaban ng kanilang kasulukuyan o sa mga prinsipyo pa man na ipinakipaglaban ng mga unang bayani. Mga prinsipyo na ipinasok sa talino at nagpapaapoy sa puso ng libu-libong iba pang kabataan at katandaan. Nakalaunay dinala sa mga lansangan at tumigatig sa kaayusan at naging banta sa seguridad ng bansa. Pinagbabaril ng pisit Metrocom ang mga ralit at demonstrasyon. Hinuli at naglahong parang bula ang marami at walang naiwan sa kanila kundi mga pangalan. Charlie Del Rosario, Lisa Balando, Boji Jimenez, Danilo Beloa. Pati isang 12 anyos na bata, pati isang matandang babae na walang ngipin ni buhok. Ay, bago pa man ibaba ang martial law, napakahaba na ng listahan. Ricardo Alcantara, Fernando Catabay, Leonildo Macaraig. Pero kukonti pa lang iyon. Libo-libo pa ang aktivistang bigla na lang nagsusulputan sa mga lansangan. Bigla na lang inululuwa ng panahon. Sinuspindi ang writ of habeas corpus. Hindi pa rin naawat. Ibinaba ang martial law at pinakalat ang militar. Sinusunod-sunod ang sonahan. Sinunod-sunod ang hulihan. Sinunod-sunod ang pagdukot at pagpatay. Dalawang bagay ang kinapuntahan ng mga aktivista pagkaraang ideklara ang martial law, lalo na silang nalagay sa panganib.
Sa isang panig ang mga natakot at nanahimik, at sa kabila ang mga nahamon at nangapit sa kanilang paninindigan. Sa ikalawang panig na ito, napabilan din ang mga wala ng pamimilian sapagkat nasa listahan na ng mga pisit Metrocom. Obligadong umalis, obligadong sumama sa propaganda o armadong pakikibaka. Pero sa gitna ng larangan, patuloy ring nasala ang mga tunay at huwad. Naihiwalay ang binhi sa ipa, bumaba at umuwi ang mga di nakatagal, o lumabas at sumuko, humalik sa paa ng kaaway. Naiwan ang mga butil ng ginto para patuloy na itanim at payabungin ang binhi ng pagkamakabayan. Umabot sa 10,000 ang bilang ng mga biktimang ikinulong, ginahasa, nawala at pinatay. Sinamsam ni Ana ang makapal ng salansan ng forms na iniluwa ng copy machine. Mahigit ng 100 ang kapal niyon. Isang papel para sa 100 kwento. Kaya bang pagkasyahin sa isang papel ang bawat isang kwento? Marahil ay hindi kakasya sa 100 papel ang bawat isa nito. Sapagkat bawat isa ay kwento ng paninindigan at pakikibaka sa labas at loob ng sarili, ng mga pagkakalayot paghahanap, ng mga kamatayan at paglilibing. Maliliit na tagumpay kung meron man, na inani sa punlang pangarap na itinanim sa lupang dinilig ng dugo at buhay. Inalay niya ang kanyang buhay para sa sambayanang Pilipino. Parang naririnig pa ni Ana hanggang ngayon ang mga salita ni Roy sa luksang parangal para kay Nonong. Isang luksang parangal na idinaos sa kalaliman ng gabi, sa kwarto ng isang bahay na malayo sa karamihan. Marahil sa eksaktong mga sandaling iyon, may iba pang luksang parangal na idinadaos sa iba't ibang bahay ng mga kasama. Hindi man para kay Nonong ay para sa iba pa. Kanya-kanyang parangal at pagunita. Kanya-kanyang sabit ng bandila ng pakikibaka. Naagaran ding ititiklop at itatabi. Ilang taon lang ba si Nonong, mga kasama? 24, pero ang 24 na taon niya sa mundo ay hindi kayang tumbasan ng marami-raming nabubuhay ng 74 o 84 na taon. Sapagkat ang buhay na ialay sa bayan ay isang buhay na walang kamatayan. Mabuhay si Nonong, mga kasama! May iglap na tumindig at nagtaas din ng kamay. Para sa tagumpay ng revolusyon, mga kasama, mabuhay ang pakikibaka ng sambayanang Pilipino!
And that was the excerpt from Desaparecidos by Luhalhati Bautista. This novel revolves around Ana, a student activist during the first quarter storm, or the time prior to the imposition of martial law. After martial law is imposed, she then joins the rebel forces under the New People's Army, which is an armed branch of the Communist Party. The word desaparecidos is actually a Spanish word that means missing people.
So now that we've heard about this, what do you guys think about desaparecidos? Let's start with you, Nat.
Hello everyone. Hello. Okay. Yeah, so basically that was such a moving piece. Like, I really loved reading and listening to Saidal's the way that you basically recited the piece. Like, it was, the upstage girly is like popping off. I just really love like that excerpt because I love how it basically narrates how, like, it basically tells how there were so many victims during martial law, and it's just so sad because there are stories behind those people who were deemed as numbers na lang ba. Like, at the end of the day, like, they were, a lot of people, like, they became stats, and it's just sad because they're more than numbers. Those people who died, who were victims, who disappeared, they had their own story, they had their own lives, they had people they love, people who love them back, and it's just sad. And the fact that people until now that people are still trying to like kanang deny those people, like deny the existence of desaparecidos, and it's just heartbreaking, honestly.
Yes, I agree. It kind of like we could connect it to one of the phrases here sa excerpt na isang daang papel is like hindi siya sapat to like kind of like say the hundreds and thousands of like stories of the people. So like that's why we can say that it's very heartfelt when we read this excerpt from chapter 2. It's because Luwalhati Bautista's writing this chapter. She poignantly captures like the pain of loss, the uncertainty of the future, and the lingering hope that the disappeared might still be alive. But then again, the story is not only about, you know, individual suffering, but it also kind of like serves as a commentary like on the collective trauma experienced by a nation under dictatorship.
That's true.
What about you, Yulo? What do you think about the excerpt?
Same sentiments. It was very moving, and actually, you know, this book, although in a way it's kind of fictional, it revolves around a fictional character, but it was inspired by real events. So in a way, you can empathize with it. You know, you can relate to it in a way, and it also serves as a really painful reminder of the things that Filipinos went through during the Marcos regime. And it also made me realize that us right now, the Filipino people, we should be more vigilant, you know, and we should be more courageous to fight against injustices of the government. And we should protect democracy at all costs. We should not let the government dictate us.
Yeah, and I love how this piece basically emphasized that the victims of martial law of the Marcos regime didn't start after the declaration of 1081, because in the piece in Duwalhati's piece, she said where was that? She said napakarami na ang listahan even without martial law starting yet. Like, napakahaba na ng listahan. And then, Luwalhati even enumerated some names like Ricardo Alcantara, Fernando Catabay, Leonildo Macaraeg. Like, there's already a list even before the declaration of 1081. So, the fact that people deny the atrocities that basically happened during 1081, unsa na lang katong sa before 1081 pa na declaration, no?
That's
like
true.
daghan jud kaayo ang na victims sa martial law and or the Marcos regime in general. And it's just so sad because a lot of them were just forgotten by a lot of people. Their sufferings were denied for kanang question pa, like with a lot of people, even with the revision with history. It's just so sad kay so many of them lost, so many innocent lives lost.
Yes, exactly. And I really do think that the most striking thing about this piece in itself is its title, because, you know, as we can all see that this chapter has delved into like kind of like the psychological and the emotional impact on those who have suffered from the forced disappearances, especially from their loved ones. And so hence the title nga Desaparecidos, which means the disappeared. So it really gives you kind of a reflection on grief, on longing, on the struggles of those left behind, as well as the broader implications of like living under this repressive regime. So what do you think, how can we connect this piece into how we live as of the moment in our status quo?
Okay, so basically for me, I think that this piece, it's a good reminder for us to not repeat history, to always remember the past. Because again, as what was stated by Luwalhati Bautista, basically, they mentioned that it's important to emphasize that martial law wasn't just this whole period. Like, the events that led to martial law were already like a lot. So for us to avoid a potential repeat of what happened from the past, it's important to constantly be vigilant of what's happening now, to always be cautious of what's happening in the government and society. Kay kanang you'll never expect, manggod, because this one, the one sa martial law, like, it was a calculative move. And you have to constantly kanang wonder, are they like, did you ever wonder if they thought na like kanang, do you think na the people before martial law was declared was already aware that it was like about to happen to them, of what atrocity lies behind, like beyond like the declaration? So it's really important to always be vigilant of everything around you para to avoid any of that.
So how about you, Yula? What do you think are the visible and invisible scars left by the regime?
Wow, that is a really challenging question. I guess the scars that has been left is perhaps, because of martial law. I guess, well, that is a challenging question, but for me, I guess the visible scars that has been left by the martial law. Of course, the victims, especially the survivors who has faced the atrocities during that time, and the activists who fought for it, and it was a really bad experience for them. And right now, a lot of people are unfortunately, they seem to have forgotten what happened in the past, and some people even disregard martial law and acting as if it was something that
the
was
golden age,
yeah,
as what they say.
Something that was unimportant, or for some people even it was the golden age, apparently, because of the advancements that apparently happened back then. So knowing that, it's really disheartening to know that there are people who suffered in that era, but a lot of people nowadays don't even acknowledge that fact, And invisible scars, I mean, unfortunately, there are still instances nowadays that government officials still abuse their power. And there are also some government officials that, they're very corrupt, like they hide whatever illegal stuff they're doing. They try to project that they're good, that they're trying to help people and all that, but in all honesty, they do not. So I guess that's what I can say about that.
So, what do you think is the message that we can get from this piece, and what kind of message would we like to convey to other generations, to our fellow youth members, etc.?
To remember.
Never forget, never again.
Never again. It's important to really remember, because we tend to forget, especially like when a lot of people try to revise history. Even like kanang, I'm aware, like even myself, when I was young, I used to think that era was golden, because kanang, I didn't know. I wasn't there. And everything I heard like from social media, basically, which is again one of the worst ways to learn about these things, because they tend to be kanang manipulated. Because I remember like when I was young, my first memories of like joining the internet, kaya I saw like videos of the Philippines, and then they said, oh, ang Philippines ba kay katong time ni Marcos, nay grabe jud kay today, like kuan jud kanang daghan jud kay potential. If siya pa ang president until now, nagwa na jud, grabe na jud ta, like pang first world levels na jud. And I remember like seeing that, and then thinking, no, if ana man di ay, then why did we oust him? Why did we stop the quote unquote progress, diba?
Yeah.
Okay, if kanang, especially like with today's age, like with the digital media and like all that, it's easy to manipulate the past. So that's why for me, it's really, really important to remember. And not just remember, it's important to discern as well. Okay, remembering, yes, it's important to remember. But at the same time, it's good to reflect on why you should remember. Okay, why remember in the first place, right? You need to remember why you need to remember it. Like, you need to discern. Okay, it's important to constantly think about the past, to reflect on it, para we can avoid such such things to happen again in the future. Okay, it's really easy to just say, we need to remember the past and not learn from it. Okay, you need to learn from the things that happened before, so to basically, again, avoid it from happening again.
Yeah. And also, one thing to consider is that during martial law, any type of media was not really given the freedom, to do, like broadcasting, and only those who are affiliated with Marcos are the
Yes.
ones allowed to operate. So, if martial law is gonna happen now, if for instance, hopefully
Simbako.
not Simbako,
Knock on
we
wood.
wouldn't even be here right now talking
Yeah.
about this, like it's also important that right now we should protect our freedom of
Yes.
speech, our freedom to express ourselves, because back then this was suppressed.
Yeah.
So I just want to tell everyone that we should not only should we be vigilant, but we should also be able to fight for
Yes.
our rights, fight for freedom of expression. So that's what I have to say for this.
Okay. So it's really good thing that we try to remember our history and to not forget the wounds that have been inflicted in the past. And Bautista's piece, Desaparecidos, it kind of serves as a reminder of the deep personal and like societal wounds inflicted by the martial law na era. And so, Bautista not only like captured the emotional toll of a repressive regime, but it also kind of like reminds us of like the importance really of like remembering history and the resilience that we needed to seek justice for those who were forgotten, and to those and for those who disappeared even in the darkest time. And so with that, we'd like to wrap up our discussion on Desaparecidos and also invite everyone to recognize the importance of remembering history, to carry and forward these lessons, and to always honor those who suffered, so that we may continue to fight for justice and truth in our own time.
Bilang isang eskolar ng bayan, I have come to realize that quality education goes beyond attending classes, passing exams, or institutions being equipped with the best infrastructures and gadgets. Quality education is about being challenged to think critically, question or criticize the status quo, and engage with the masses. In UP, we're not just learning for today or tomorrow, but preparing for the future. Quality education implores us to adapt, innovate, serve, and contribute. It pushes us to excel not only for ourselves, but for the nation. Bilang isang eskolar ng bayan, husay at dangal ang ating tinatangkilik. We are nurtured to create, inspired to innovate, destined to serve. We learn, we realize, we grow. It's through quality education that we can make a difference. Bilang isang eskolar ng bayan, I have come to realize that quality education goes beyond attending classes, passing exams, or institutions being equipped with the best infrastructures and gadgets. Quality education is about being challenged to think critically, question or criticize the status quo, and engage with the masses. In UP, we're not just learning for today or tomorrow, but preparing for the future. Quality education implores us to adapt, innovate, serve, and contribute. It pushes us to excel not only for ourselves, but for the nation. Bilang isang eskolar ng bayan, husay at dangal ang ating tinatangkilik. We are nurtured to create, inspired to innovate, destined to serve. We learn, we realize, we grow. It's through quality education that we can make a difference.
Prometheus Unbound. Mars shall glow tonight. Artemis is out of sight. Rust in the twilight sky colors a bloodshot eye. Or shall I say that dust sonders the sleep of the just? Hold fast to the gift of fire. I am rage, I am wrath, I am ire. The vulture sits on my rock, licks at the chains that mock. Emancipation's breath reeks of death, death, death. Death shall not unclench me. I am earth, wind, and sea. Kisses bestow on the brave that defy the damp of the grave, and strike the chill hand of death with the flaming sword of love. Orion stares. The vulture retreats from the hard, pure thrust of the sparkle that burns. Thrust of the spark that burns. Unbounds, departs, returns. To pluck out of death's fist a god who dared to resist. And that was the poem entitled Prometheus Unbound by Ruben Cuevas. It appeared in the Marcos Allied magazine during the martial law era. It featured classical references, elaborate rhymes, and seemed normal looking. However, the poem secretly contained a hidden message, wherein, if you read the first letters of each line downward, spelled out the opposition slogan, Marcos, Hitler, Dictador, Tuta. After the hidden message was discovered, it led to a crackdown by the authorities, and it was, in itself, an act of rebellion against the regime. And that was the poem. Now, what do you think about that, Eula?
Well, I think that the poem, what the author did, Ruben Cuevas,
Ruben
right?
Cuevas, yeah.
So what he did was really smart. I really like that he silently rebelled,
Yeah.
like through his works, especially since it was published in a Marcos affiliated magazine. So it was very brave of him to do that. And especially knowing that during that time, it was not, it was not really, I would say, advisable for normal people
Yeah.
to do that because they would be prosecuted.
Yeah.
Persecuted, rather. They would be persecuted.
Yeah, and it was a smart move, honestly. It was very what do you call that, malicious compliance in a way, because I mean technically he didn't say anything bad if you didn't look through the acrostic. If you didn't see na ang first line man ang first letters man especially when I heard about this happening, when we were researching about potential literary works for this episode. And when I came across this, I remember being so amazed because I didn't expect that, honestly.
Yeah.
Even I didn't expect it. And then the fact that a Marcos Allied magazine not only accepted it, but published it to the people, is just amazing how he was able to go through with that. And very brave too, don't you think?
Yes, indeed. It was very brave of him and also very admirable to stand up for something he doesn't believe is right.
Yeah. And the fact that this poem was actually published a year after the Proclamation 1081. So just imagine, kana nga time kay daghan na kay na mga people who were disappearing, people who were killed, who were from going up against the regime. So he was very brave. And speaking of this person, Ruben Cuevas, do you know that Ruben Cuevas is actually a pen name, of course, because even me, I don't think I would be able to say, to tell your own name. That would be like a target, placing yourself as a target, right? So basically, the writer behind Ruben Cuevas is actually Jose Maria Flores Lacaba. or simply known as Pete Lacaba. And this guy, well, he actually kanang he was very active when it comes to voicing out his opinions, being against injustices, especially during this era na kanang grabe jud kaayo ang injustice. I mean, you can just see. And then he actually did this before before this was published. Actually, he submitted it to the Varsitarian, basically the news, the what do you call that, the local the publication organization in UST, University of Santo Tomas.
So he's from UST.
No, he went to Ateneo de Manila.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but then apparently, like, I think due to his finances, like, since it gave in, he wasn't able to kanang afford na to continue his studies. Kanang he started writing for free press rather, and because of that, kanang he just basically like wrote, and then when he wrote Prometheus Unbound, it was actually he submitted it for UST, and at that time people were telling him na, oh, you can submit to the Varsitarian as long as kanang you make sure lang na kanang it's not as kanang targeting the government. Kaya, you know, it's dangerous.
Make it like moderate.
Kuan lang, just make it neutral. Kay kanang neutral lang kay para dili ka delikado ba ya, di ba? Tapos so, but of course, before he kanang told the Varsitarian about it, when he gave the paper, iya sad giingnan sad na, like, I mean, he basically like kanang told them na it's an acrostic. The first few, the first letters, kay it spells out this message. So kanang ana, and I think, I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but I think if I'm saying this right, I'm not sure. Murag wa man guro nigikuan sa Varsitarian, like murag wala na publish at that time. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's a bold statement.
Yeah, it was understandable. They were afraid.
Yeah, they were afraid. People were disappearing during this time. Tapos, so because of that, kanang there was a certain magazine na alay jud kaayo ni Marcos, as in like they really worship Marcos, like sa propaganda jud tabang jud kini sila. And when kuan iyagi try na, why not see if like I can publish this.
Yeah.
Which was a bold move and a scary move at that. Okay, just imagine, it's like the equivalent of basically like telling your enemies mo ni, like kanang, just imagine someone na kanang writing like a text message or a message or something na like kanang to say na kanang bashing your own self ba. Tapos you're telling that person to read that for you.
Yeah.
Of like basically like being kuan. So it was very kanang brave of him to do so, honestly.
Brave, bold, rebellious.
Yeah, that's the term. And so he was able to write it for a magazine company called Focus Magazine, if I'm not mistaken. So he published it through Focus Magazine, and for this time, he didn't say that it was an acrostic. So obviously, since it's a Marcos Allied magazine, so he just submitted it.
Yeah.
And then kanang the government sanctioned magazine, kanang they just nakalusot rasad, like they didn't realize na like the extent, like the message that they were publishing kay mao di ay to, like it was going against their quote unquote beliefs di ay. So amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing jud kaayo.
Yeah, it's really amazing, Jude. And also, I was like wondering when, how did it go through? You know, like I suppose that with publications in that magazine, they have to undergo inspection. So perhaps it was a blessing for us and for those who were against Marcos to, you know, like the ones who checked it didn't really notice the hidden message.
Yeah. Mura siya ganang, have you ever encountered kanang hidden Mickey? Kanang sa kuan ba? Like there's like certain meanings behind it.
Yeah.
Ganang And it's just so funny kay kaninga time kanang there Lacaba was actually interviewed. Pete Lacaba was interviewed like a few years later. Kanang giunsa nga like what's his motivation for like publishing this one, and then he said something that was like laro lang. So he just did this for the vibes, for the kuan lang jud kaayo. Kay he even said kanang at this time context lang, this poem, like one of the reasons why the Marcus Allied magazine published it, because they thought na this poem kay it's very kanang very strict kaayo paminawon ba, like it goes with their message na dapat, di ba, during martial law, dapat by this time uli na ka, dapat you do this, you do that.
It evokes power.
Yeah, it evokes murag na ay jud kanang you kanang na control ba, like
authority.
Authority, yeah, that's the word. If you really listen to the poem kay murag na siya kanang promoting that you need to follow or something like that. But then kanang Lacaba was able to make use of his talent.
True.
So he was able to kanang make use of that, and kanang uno reverse card in a way. Kay murag it went against the favor of the oppressors. And even the fact na kanang apart from saying na laro lang ang the act of publishing the poem that he made, kanang Lacaba even said na, you know, the first line is actually a pun on martial law. Kay Mars isn't even a Greek god. Kay if you he's not a Greek god, he's a Roman. Yeah. Kay in the poem, like you can see the first line mismo padaan kay unsa to, like Mars is what was that? Sorry. It was Mars shall glow tonight. See? Mars shall glow tonight. Oh. So it's martial law tonight. Yeah, diba?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's actually he's very smart for that actually. Kay kanang from the start na daan kanang Mars shall glow tonight. It's just
martial
law tonight. Yeah, martial law tonight. So murag every part of that poem really had like meaning to it. Kanang he really constructed it in a way na to rebel against the regime of Marcus. And I just love how he was able to go through with that. He was able to publish with that, and he was successful as well. Okay, kanang just imagine a magazine kanang supporting Marcus, and then most of the masyak lang ka ba? Marcus, praising that guy, and then suddenly you come across a poem and you look at the first
nakalusot siya.
And the first letters were like Marcos Dictador Tuta, Marcos Hitler Dictador Tuta.
I mean, like at first glance, if dili jud nimo siya tan-awon pag maayo, mura na siya ordinary poem that that talks about authority, power, and it has like classical references. But if you look closely, makuan jud ka, ma-amaze ka na there's actually hidden meanings. You know, like the first letters of the line spells out, you know,
Marcos Hitler Dictador Tuta.
Marcos Hitler Dictador Tuta, and the first line. It sounds like martial law tonight. That was really creative, you know.
He was a genius for that.
I like that he was able to use his creativity to express something that he believes is right, you know.
Yeah.
And that is good for the people too. And well, because of his creativity, his intelligence, he was actually awarded, if I'm not mistaken, the Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards for poetry in Filipino. So
he deserves it. Just for that poem alone, that act of rebellion itself is just amazing. I mean, I've always like kanang I really love the saying na kanang a pen is mightier than a sword.
Yes.
Yeah, because for this one, it's amazing. It's a perfect execution of kanang genius, you know.
True.
To be able to do that and just write, and to write with a purpose is just amazing. And which is for me what writing should really be about. Like kanang you write with a purpose. You write with the intent for the good of the people.
True.
Okay, it's just amazing. Tapos kanang apart from that, he was actually punished because of this as well.
Oh.
I mean, with his writing, he was punished and he was imprisoned for years. But then after he went out of basically imprisonment sa the regime of Marcos, kanang he had like a very sad life because the first act that he did as a free man was actually to wait for the corpse of his murdered brother. So
My goodness.
I just imagine being imprisoned for years, and then the first thing that you have to do when you go out of imprisonment is to wait for the body, the corpse of your brother.
So his little brother, was it, or it wasn't mentioned, or
I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's the older brother.
Older
if
brother.
Not mistaken.
Okay, so the older brother was unfortunately one of the victims.
Yeah, victims of martial law, and it's sad.
Yeah.
To basically understatement. Okay, just imagine like martial law took a lot of things for people. Freedom, ganang
lives,
safety, education, opportunities, so many things lost because of greed.
True.
Because of greed, injustice, grabe na lang jud. Okay. And kanang Pete Lacaba, he actually only wrote like, I think he only wrote like 2 English poems.
Oh, so the rest are in Filipino.
Kanang koan lang, like I remember, like apparently when he worked with Lino Broca, filmmaker Lino Broca.
Yeah, I am familiar.
So he worked with Lino Broca for Ora Pro Nobis, and then it was promptly censored. Ora Pro Nobis was promptly censored. And it was basically never commercially screened while Aquino was president. And after that, Lacaba never wrote another English poem.
Oh.
Yeah. True story. And so basically for that one, what do you think of his act of like using your words, your literary prowess to rebel against a certain regime? What do you think about that?
I mean, the act in itself was it's actually brave, and it took a lot of risk for him to do that. And knowing that, it was admirable for Lacaba or Ruben Cuevas to be able to do that. He knows the risk, he knows the implications of what was about to happen if he did that, and he did so anyway, and that was very admirable. And I think, if you have the talent, the creativity to do something, and you're good at it, and at the same time, if you want to stand up for whatever you believe in that is right, then you should go for it, know? Like, if you have the ability to do that, then do that. If that's what it takes to be able to change the system, and I think that's what you should do. What about you?
Well, I just love the fact that Prometheus Unbound is so Filipino. Like, not Filipino in a way na like the classical koan, like kanang the references, but Filipino in a way like the act of doing so. Like, kanang, it's, when you think about it, it's part of a century-old tradition of Filipinos protest writing. Kanang, not just during martial law era, like during sa Spanish padaan, there's this thing called literature of circumvention. Literature of circumvention is basically the practice of that goes back against propaganda movements. Na kanang during the Spanish rules, di ba? Kanang the Commonwealth era sa America, kay people were already like using their talents to write as a form of activism to go against dictatorships or oppression through the use of their wit, irony, allusion, allegory, satire, and spoof. It's just so amazing that you can use language to evoke a sense of activism gani.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Lahi ra jud.
This happened before in the Spanish colonization. I mean, Jose Rizal is the
yeah.
prime example for that. His works, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, it was really, like a really influential thing that he wrote, because it caused an uproar against Spain.
It motivated people as well. So I think the same would go for Prometheus Unbound. I bet like there were people who subscribed to that magazine, and I remember probably seeing katong acrostic. No,
It
Marcos
must have been a
Dictador.
surprise for
Right,
them. They weren't expecting that an anti-Marcos publication, or an anti-Marcos
Message, rather,
message
to be in a publication.
To be in a publication. Like,
and just imagine the hope that would rise from people who were against Marcos during that time, and seeing na kanang ay possible man di ay na like they were able to like go through like without like if possible na they can outsmart rather, if they can outsmart a publication. Just imagine like the hope that would have sparked the people who were anti-Marcos, who read that magazine and saw that na murag, wow, they're not as kuande ay, they're not as indestructible as we thought they were. Okay, they have their weakness. They can still be outsmarted, outwit. Ganang. And the fact that ganang Prometheus Unbound is actually one of the earliest, and if not one of the most resounding psychological defeats ever handed to Ferdinand Marcos during that time. Okay, you were outsmarted.
True. It actually messes with you,
like small even like kanang not really small things when you think about it. I mean, it's a whole magazine praising you, and suddenly it's calling you dictador tuta.
I would say that it was just a small length poem that had a big impact
as well. And I just love how kanang it further emphasizes the importance of poetry and writing and literary in general, and how it basically can rise a movement, gani. It can support a movement.
True. So I was also thinking about the state of media during the martial law era. So I'm thinking, because Pete Lacaba, or Ruben Cuevas, his pen name, he had to like put hidden messages on his poem, you know. So it made me realize that in order for you to write something, to express something, you have to be creative, because if you freely express something, that would mean that you would get persecuted for
delikado jud kaayo.
Delikado jud siya. So right now we're actually like experiencing freedom in being able to express what we want, like we're able to freely, like we can even criticize the government, and we wouldn't be persecuted. But back then it wasn't really.
Can I just rephrase that, Yula? Although we have what do you call that? Although we have freedom for press, there are still, when you really think about it, we're not as free as we think we are.
Oh yeah, that is true.
There are still a lot of people.
There is freedom, but to an extent.
To an extent.
I understand. But if we think about it, we're more free now than we were back then. So we just because of that, we really have to remember that this freedom that we have, we shouldn't take it for granted. And
apart from that, it's also important to not only acknowledge the freedom, the little bit of freedom, I guess, the freedom that we have right now, but also think of the freedom that we deserve as well.
True.
Especially as
our
communicators,
rights.
as communicators, it's important for us to acknowledge that there's still a long way to go.
That is true.
There is still a long way to go, especially like until now, people, journalists, communicators, people in the media are still being targeted for speaking their truth, for amplifying the voices of the oppressed. We are still constantly being targeted by it's important that we always acknowledge how there's still a long way to go, and how we should constantly fight and ask for what we deserve.
True.
Okay, for what we deserve. Okay, we have so much potential. Like, there are still people who have stories to tell, who should be heard, but are not being heard, or rather being silenced, because their stories go against the state's kanang utopian image kuno, diba?
Okay. And I think some people tend to forget that the media is actually the watchdog of the government,
Yes, very communicator.
So because of that, like we should give importance to like mass media.
Yes, the importance of it.
Yeah, because I think because of the like it's easy now to be able to get information. Like if you just go to Facebook, you would see, like people posting stuff, and
but it's also important to point out that although it's easy to get information, it doesn't mean you're getting the right information. Yes, it's easy to get information, but sometimes that information can be harmful, because especially if it's misinformation or disinformation, then that's why discernment is really needed, as what we discussed in the first literary work that we placed in for this episode. It's really important to discern,
true,
to evaluate,
really check for yourself, research, like fact check is important. So what I can say is that mass media is very important, but us netizens, because we live in a digital age now, it's our responsibility to fact check.
Sorry. It's our responsibility to fact check. Yes.
Yeah.
And that concludes today's episode of Storybites about Proclamation 1081. As Filipino people and as students of UP, may we continuously remind ourselves that martial law is not merely just a chapter in our history books, but an important lesson about safeguarding our rights and fighting against injustices made by the government. It is our responsibility to remain vigilant, defend democratic principles, and ensure that human rights violations will never happen again. In this way, we can honor those who fought against the oppression that happened during the martial law era. Never forget, never again.
You've just enjoyed another episode of Storybites. Until next time, keep your imagination alive and your stories endless. Bite-sized tales, endless possibilities. This is DYUP Sugbo, kauban niyo.
Melvin Jerusalem vows to defend belt versus Luis Castillo. Rising girl group Cat's Eye dominates mall showcase.
DYUP kauban niyo.
November 20, 2024 time check. It's 10:34 in the morning. Maayong adlaw, UP Cebu. Good morning, UP. Let's continue our commemoration of and sensitivity for today, as it is the second day of martial law commemoration in UP Cebu. That being said, the 1081 exhibit. As we navigate through this day, we encourage everyone to attend the activities prepared by the 1081 exhibit for day 2. That's why let us all be mindful of today's significance. Now for our top stories. Groups urge government to save Tanyon Strait. Multi-sectoral groups from Cebu and Negros have launched the Save Tanyon Strait campaign, opposing the expansion of Aboitiz Therma Visayas coal-fired power plant in Toledo City, Cebu. The Tanyon Strait, a protected marine area home to various marine species, faces potential harm from the proposed Unit 3 expansion. Bishop Gerardo Alminaza of San Carlos Diocese highlighted the environmental risks and called for government leaders to protect the seascape. Activists argue that coal is unreliable and costly, contributing to higher electricity prices and harming marine ecosystems. The coalition stresses that the expansion violates the Department of Energy's coal moratorium and urges leaders to uphold a coal phase-out. Aboitiz has yet to issue a statement. And now for the national news. Former Mayor of Iloilo Mabilog reveals plans to implicate Rodrigo Duterte's political opponents. Iloilo City Mayor Jed Patrick Mabilog raises concerns over alleged political abuse of law enforcement in the country, implying that the Philippine National Police, or PNP, along with Rodrigo Duterte, was involved in a plan to implicate former presidential candidate Mar Rojas and Senator Franklin Drilon in a drug scheme. Mabilog claims that despite attempts to meet then-President Duterte to clarify the drug allegations against him, the opportunity was never granted. Furthermore, Mabilog alleges that he was invited to meet with the former PNP chief, now Senator Bato de la Rosa, but received a phone call that he would be killed if he did so. Mabilog went on to say he later received a phone call from Senator Bato de la Rosa saying that he believed in Mabilog's innocence. However, before he could return home from his work trip to seek help from the former PNP chief, Mabilog received a call that told him he would be killed if he did not implicate former presidential candidate and opposition senator as drug lords. After that call, he immediately flew to the United States from Japan and was granted political asylum. Mabilog returned to the Philippines on the 10th of September to clear his name. And now for our UP Cebu news. More 1081 updates. 1081 exhibit features martial law atrocities, calls for continued resistance. We have here Hannah Gresha for the update.
Law under the Marcos Sr. dictatorship, the University of the Philippines Cebu, led by the communicators of UP, launched its annual 1081 exhibit yesterday with the theme Tagubtob sa Kamatuuran, Remember, Reveal, Resist, emphasizing the resistance against all forms of oppression and tyranny. The opening event included a play by UP students' Theater Arts Guild for Education, depicting stories of desaparecidos during martial law. The students then staged a lightning rally demanding a free press and justice for political prisoners. A ribbon-cutting ceremony took place at the UP Cebu Museum of Culture and Arts, marking the formal opening of the 1081 exhibit, which will be open to the public until September 22. A panel discussion was also hosted at the Performing Arts Hall, while Lawak Sinihan organized 2 film screenings featuring the documentary Samasa. The events for this year's 1081 commemoration will run until Sunday, and the cultural night will take place later at the Sunset Garden. This has been Hannah Gresha Bayon, DYUP Sugbo, kauban nimo.
Don't leave our broadcast just yet, as we will talk more about the 1081 protest action featuring our special guest. Stay tuned for more updates.
A brilliant idea to make a positive impact? Tulad ng automated audio learning platform o digital museum, o kaya isang academic collaboration app? Calling innovators, entrepreneurs, and inventors na may passion for driving positive change. Red Bull Basement is back for 2024. 40 teams, thousands of ideas, and one world final sa Tokyo, Japan. Enter your idea to develop your business plan accelerated by AI technology. For a chance to get advice and input on your development from experts along the way.
An idea that starts in your dorm room can help millions of people. You really do have the power to change the world.
The world is waiting for people like us.
Ang sarap ng pagkain ko ngayon. Gulay sa lugaw. At sabi mo, Nay, mabuti ito para sa akin. Iba't ibang pagkain nga ang hinahanda mo para sa akin. Pakukuluan mo muna, tapos dudurugin. At ihahalo sa malapot na lugaw. Nay, bukas po, gulay ulit ha?
And now we're back and you're still listening to Sayayo UP Cebu. Time check, it's 10:41 in the morning. And we have here our special guest. Welcome to Sayayo, Dorothy Shane Pradas. She is the Vice Chairperson for Internal Affairs from the Communicators of UP, or Come Up, and the Protest Action Head for 1081.
Hello, Ami. Thank you for inviting me here. And thank you so much for providing me this platform in order for me to speak about our upcoming events for today.
All right, first of all, congratulations for the success of day one of 1081 exhibit. For the benefit of our listeners, can you tell us more about your role as a protest action head and what is the event all about?
Well, first of all, as protest action head, my from our very own Lanog, he will all key factors in terms of simply with protest.
All right, so with that being said, you've kind of discussions and be more vigilant.
So extremely thankful for the fans' huge support.
And now for the latest chicas in the world of entertainment. Rising girl group Cat's Eye dominates mall showcase. We have Ann Cash on the report.
Cat's Eye is not so out of touch anymore. Overwhelmed, grateful, and teary-eyed. These were the words of Cat's Eye members thanking their Filipino fans who watched their performance on Ayala Market Activity Center last September 18. The Global Girl Group's leader and fellow kababayan, Sofia La Forteza, expressed that the group is also extremely thankful for the fans' huge support, filling up the mall with loud chants and cheers. She also shared that her fellow members had a feast in her Pinoy household, eating delicacies such as balut, sinigang, and strawberry taho. Cat's Eye became an overnight sensation after they released their mega hit song Touch, which has accumulated over 100 million listens from all over social media. Have you guys hopped on the TikTok trend already? This has been Ann Cash, DYUP Sugbo, kauban nimo.
And now for the recap. Groups urged government to save Tanyon Strait. Mabilog revealed plans to implicate Rodrigo Duterte's political opponents. 1081 exhibit day 1 featured martial law atrocities, calls for continued resistance. Melvin Jerusalem vowed to defend belt versus Luis Castillo. Rising girl group Cat's Eye dominated mall showcase. And those were the top stories for today. Now, for my experience during the 1081 exhibit day 1, actually I'm one of the officers of communicators of UP, so I help organize the opening program, and then in the afternoon we had a panel discussion at the Performing Arts Hall, and then simultaneously we had a film showing. Day 1 of our film showing, we premiered Samasa 2024 by Psyche Productions, and we still have this day 2 of film showing still at Lawak Sinihan at the same time, 2:30 to 5 p.m. And then the cultural night, as mentioned by Dorothy earlier, which will happen in the afternoon. And now, in commemoration of martial law and to stand with the victims of the oppressive regime, let us have a moment of silence. Once again, this has been Omi Igot. Thank you for listening to Sai Ayu UP Cebu, the beat of campus, the pulse of news. You've been listening to 98.9 DYUP Sugbo, Kauban Nimo.
DYUP Kauban Nimo.
Kay taas ng pader sa aking paligid, munting pisngi ng langit ang tanging nasisilip, mutya kong tinatangi, laging naisip, pagkat pagtangis ng mutya'y lubusan kong batid. O mutyang ginigiliw, nalukob sa dalita, ang mapaligaya kay tanging ninanasa. Ang kundiman kong ito'y pagpugay sa iyong ganda, gandang namumukadkad pag wala ka ng luha. Huwag kang malungkot, sinta, sa aking pagkawalay. Ano man ang sapitin, gunita mo ay taglay. Ang lahat ng aking lakas nalalabi pang buhay sa iyong kapakanan, aking ialay. Huwag kang malungkot, sinta, sa aking pagkawalay. Anong man ang sapitin, gunita mo pakanan aking ialay. Butihing mutya, bayan ko.
Oh, naunsa man ang pamati, Amaya.
Laban man akong ulos kay, oy.
Hala, narabatay resitron. Naunsa di ay ka.
Nauwanan magugahapon, day. Wala ko kadalas akong payong. Hays.
Maola gini. Sa panahon rin nga ting-uwan, mag-amping ta kanunay. Pagdala pirmi og payong aron di masakit. Mas maayo pod nga mag-inom og vitamins kada adlaw para lagsik ang panlawas. Maminaw ta kanunay sa mga weather report sa balita aron updated pirmi. Kung maglain ang pamati, duol dayon sa atong UP Cebu Clinic para maalalayan dayon ka. As scholars ng bayan, mag-amping kita kanunay.
This reminder is brought to you by DYUP Sugbo. DYUP Sugbo, kauban nimo.
Hoy Grace, stress man kay katanawon, okay ra ka?
Lagi? Lily Faith ba? Na-overwhelmed jud ko sa akad, sa family. Ako ra pa jud sa dorm. Life has been troublesome.
Taon pud sa akong beshi, uy. Kasuway nakag-talk ana with someone. Mental health is really important, you know?
Oo, pero how ka ba asa mo start? Plus, napad yung stigma around it.
Lagi. Maunang sugda na tugsulo nga part pud ang mental health sa atong overall well-being.
Unsang man ako pagsugod?
Daghan og resources nga pwede nimo maduulan. Parihas anang community centers, hotlines, og support online. You don't have to go through this alone.
Sakto jud ka, Faith. Sa mga panahon nga di ta kabarog, maybe it's time to take that step and reach out.
End the stigma, speak your mind, and well mind what you speak.
Kahit nasa trabaho si nanay at si tatay, hindi ako nalulungkot. Hindi rin ako nagugutom kasi kasama kita, Lola. Bago umalis si nanay para magtrabaho, nagiiwan muna siya ng breast milk niya para maibigay mo sa akin, Lola, pag nagutom ako. Pati pagkain may nakahanda na rin. Minsan nga ikaw rin po ang nagluluto para sa akin. At syempre, naglalaro rin tayo. Lola, bukas po ulit, ha?
Repression, corruption, dictatorship, torture. Uncover the harrowing narratives under the Marcos Sr. regime. Bridging history, confronting realities, reviving resistance. Pagsugil, stories of struggle.
Maayong adlaw. Welcome to Pagsugil Stories of Struggle, a special radio talk series brought to you by DYUP Sugbo and the 1081 exhibit with the theme Tagubtob sa Kamatuuran, Remember, Reveal, Resist.
This year, we echo the importance of remembering the truths of our past, revealing the harsh realities we face today, and resisting all forms of oppression and historical distortion. I am Fab.
And I'm Steven.
Maayong adlaw sa tanan.
In today's episode, we'll dive into a topic that has shaped our nation's history and continues to define our present: the role of democratic rights activism. From the days of the Katipunan to the People Power Revolution, from the streets of Manila to the digital landscapes of today's social media, activism has been a powerful force in shaping our society.
Joining us for this important discussion are representatives from Union of Progressive Students or UPS, Nagkahiusang Kusog sa Estudyante or NKE, Kabataan Party List USC, and Gabriela Youth USC.
We're thrilled to listen to their personal experiences and insights on the challenges activists face today, the importance of democratic rights activism, and how their work continues to inspire the fight for justice. Let's get into it now.
So first of all, welcome Ella, Kling, Marie, and Grace. We are very excited and we are very honored to have you here to help us remember, reveal, and resist on the stories of struggle on activism. But first, let's have our audiences get to know more about you, and can you please introduce yourself and briefly describe your experiences as an activist? Ate Ella.
Hello everyone, maayong udto kanatong tanan. Ako di ay si Israela Kisansala. You can call me Ella, but my comrades in in our political bloc we call ourselves Ka-Ella. Yeah. So I have been an activist for more than 2 years now, at least formally. An activist. No? I became part of the sentro ng nagkakaisa at progresibong manggagawa. I associate or I identify myself as a socialist feminist. I believe that socialism and feminism should come hand in hand to dissolve any manifestations of patriarchy, capitalism. So I believe dictatorship is also a manifestation of both patriarchy and capitalism. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. I am Marie Katapte, the chairperson of Kabataan Party List in University of San Carlos, and I am also a fourth year political science, majoring in law and policy studies. So I am from the organization, the first and sole representative of the youth sector in the National Congress. So if I have to describe my experience as an activist, I would use 2 words, tough love. Basically, because to be an activist, it's not easy. It's a very hard commitment. It's uneasy to commit in this movement. But the second word, it's a very good reason to stay and commit in this movement. So no matter how tough my experience was an activist, I will always remind myself the reason as to why I'm here. The love, because I love the masses. Nagmamahal ako sa masa, or nagmamahal ako ng masa. So the reason behind as to why I'm here, I'm still committing, I'm still here, is that I love the masses, and that's a good reason enough to stay and commit myself in this movement. Thank you.
Mayang adlaw ninyong tanan, mayang adlaw ninyo UP. Ako di ay si Grace Rosca, but you can call me Grace or Gracia, and I am currently representing the Gabriela Youth USC, the sole Gabriela Youth Chapter in Cebu, in the university, the mga areas. And I've been an activist for, I'd say, mga 2 years pod. Ang rason nga nung nisod ko sa movement tungod kay akap ang katilingban, na makita dyan nimo sa kinaiyang struggles sa masa, taga-adlaw, lisod economically, politically, and socially, and dili pod nato maingnan nga makasaligan pod ang gobyerno tuod gani ang masa gani ang naglihok para improve ang conditions na naa nato karon. And nganong naabot ko sa Gabriela kay naka-realize pod ko nga ang kalisod sa kababainhan o kabatanunan kay mas times 10 pa sa ginasugakod sa usa ka normal or usa ka lalaki diri sa katilingban. Og mao na nga karon kay dasig gihapon ako ang involvement sa movement, and mo pod karon kay nagpasalamat pod ko sa DYUP Cebu tungod sa pag-imbitar para maka-raise og discussion sa mga issues, labi na og unsaon ni nato pag-connect gikan sa martial law og sa mga issues nato karon.
Thank you so much, Ate Kling.
Kana usa ka madasigon og mapula nga kabuntagon kanatong tanan. Ako di ay si Clistel Kling si Mafranca, gikan sa nagkahiusang kusog sa estudyante UP Sugbo or NKE. Ang amo ang organisasyon nagpabilin nga mutuon nga dapat makinasudnon ang ato ang sistema sa edukasyon. Scientifico po dapat siya og dapat aksesible o libre para sa tanan ug walay gipili. Nasulod ko sa movement. Una katong nahimo kong volunteer corps sa UP Cebu University Student Council. So lagmit ako usa ka aktivista mga kuana naana sa mga more than 3 years ana. So kana siya, and nisulod ko sa movement tungod kay napukaw ko una sa ligtas na balik eskwela nga campaign, tungod kay isip usa ka anak og sa may proletariado or kanang walay klaro nga panginabuhian ang papa, kay galisod ko sa online setup. So mas kato ang nakapalihok nako, isip kabatan-unan nga makibisog more than myself kato.
Sige, dugang kadasig jud ang inyong dedication to fight the good fight. Bisan pa man og lain-lain nga organization, we are bound by the same, or you are bound by the same cause, which is to fight and serve the masses, no? So, with regards to your experiences and with the theme of martial law right now, as activists, can you walk us through the history of the Marcos regime, Marcos Sr. especially, and its impact on democratic rights and activism movements?
Sige, so mo ato ta sa history no of the martial law. So ato sa unahon no kinsa man jud ang hinungdan ngano nag-martial law. We know si Marcos Sr. no. Marcos Sr. became the president at 1965. No, 1965 nga according to the constitution during that time, maximum of 2 years. No, so supposedly 2 years ang consecutive terms, na each term has 4 years. So therefore, if Marcos Sr. wins 2 election, 8 years ra yang max. But we know nahimog 21 katuig, no? And that's a result of dictatorship ni Marcos. Grabe ang pagpangharas mismo, no, and iyang jung shape ang Philippine government and even businesses, no, to bend for what he wants, no. So dito gitawag ang martial law era as the death of democracy, no. Namatay jud ang demokrasiya ato nga time. The human rights defenders, human rights activists, mga protesters, mga students, no, mga progresibo kay wala gipili, no. Bawal magtapok-tapok, bawal magstorya og ingani, no. If atong i-compare ang demokrasiya karon og sa sauna, makaingon ta nga mas dako-dako og democratic space karon at some point at least no. Pero makaingon gapon ta nga naagi hapoy pagpangharas ron, red tagging, pag-profiling, no. So makaingon ta nga death of democracy jud to. And as the activists of today's generation, it is our task pa dito mahitabo balik, no. Dako kay ta nga role nga gi-play karon. So kana.
Thank you.
So, mubalik sad ko no sa history sa Marcos regime sa unang panahon kay kung istoryahan gid ang expression freedom, makayon gid ko nawala sa unang panahon. Kay kung balik ko nato by statistics, no, there are 70,000 imprisoned that time. There are also 34,000 tortured, and ang mga political activists, mga human rights nga activists, daghan kaayo nga giaresto. So kung kana pa lang ang basihan, especially ako gikan gid ko sa Southern Leyte. So sa amo grabe gyud ang paghugot didto sa kanang human rights sa amo ang lugar. So na ako'y experiences na asad ko'y based on my ancestors and family na gani ang military rule sa unang panahon kay gihimo nilang trip man lang kay because they have the power, they have the influence, they have the connection. So kana kay tungod under military rule man para nila kay tag-iya na sila sa Pilipinas to the point na bisan man gani ang pag-torture kay trip man lang nila. Sa Southern Leyte, I have a very close person in my heart na iyang tito na biktima gyud, no. Pauli gikan eskwelahan, 17 years old. He was 17 years old that time. Pauli gikan sa eskwelahan, unya gitorture, gibugbog sa military. Unya ang rason wala, tripan lang. So kana, and that person right now cannot talk. He was very traumatized of what happened. So those are the reasons as to why it really makes me feel so much anger when it comes to these situations, because as a POSA student pod kaning mga panghitabo di gyud ta angay mo hilom, di gyud ta angay mo piyong kay kaning mga panghitabo bisan pag dili POSA student no, as mga estudyante na atay right og dapat ta mutingog sa mga panghitabo kay bisan man gani sa unang panahon kung naamang gani censorship when it comes to the media, naaman gani curtain when it comes to the expression sa mga katawhan, human rights expression, no, kana naaman gani. Pero karon though naaman siya little progress, pero naagi hapoy mga abduction, naagi hapoy mga killings, naagi hapoy mga torture nga mga panghitabo sa karong panahon na. So kana bisan pa man when it comes to the differences siguro na ay little improvement because kung tanaw nato mas nidaghan gyud ta, mas nangusog gyud ta, especially ang mga students no, sa mga student activists na nangusog gyud sila nga mulaban sa rights sa mga katawhan. Pero kana gani nagihapon ang repression o oppression when it comes to our human rights, our human rights and our rights to expression.
Okay, so kuan pod historically during martial law kay pait o ngit-ngit jud kay nga time para sa mga kababaihan o mga bata. Tuod gani grabe kayo ang famine rate sa Philippines during martial law. In fact mo na to ang nga Nutriban nga gipadala sa US kunuhay para sustain or para maka-assist sa Philippines sa famine crisis nato. Pero kana ato pod i-trace back unta pod madiscuss nig maayo sa pinakalasad nga speaker nga ang ginabuhat pod sa US ato kay dako siyang violation sa human rights ug welfare labi na sa mga Pilipino. Ang katong pag-send og Nutriban could even if sila pod ang usa sa mga hinungdan sa martial law ug sila pod ang naggalgal sa mga human rights violation diri sa Pilipinas. Tuod gani daghan kay tag mga kababaihan didto nga gina-violate pamaagi sa sexual extortion o kanang murder or death. Si Hilaw nga Filipina youth activist, usa siya ka estudyante sa una nga nag-commit og suicide ni trigger warning lang sa usa ka violente nga description, pero nitulon siya or ni consume siya muriatic acid tungod kay siya ang pinakaunang political prisoner ug naka-experience siya og torture. Si Lorena Barros og usa sad siya sa balig inspirasyon sad sa Gabriela karon nga ni-lead siya sa militanteng ug progresibong grupo sa martial law para kana mo advocate og mo resist sa fascist regime ni Marcos. So pila-pila pa lang na mga cases nga ato ang nahibaw-an, wala pa jud ta kahibaw sa extent og pila ka buok comfort women nga ni encompass during martial law og pila ka buok bata ang nangamatay og nagutom during martial law.
Ate Kling.
So agree ko sa mga gipang batbat sa ako ang fellow speakers karong buntaga. So if I were to describe in a metaphorical manner the regime of Marcos Sr. Makaingon ko nga, if killing was a sport, Marcos Sr. is our gold medalist. So siya, binansagan yun na to siya nga usa ka mass murderer tungod sa iyang 1081 proclamation because it curtailed a lot of our freedom, our democracy, and daghan kayo nga mga human rights violation ang nakomit during his time. And it was a conscious decision. It was a self-serving interest gani. So aside from the human rights and democratic violations, kay we also have an economical massacre on our Filipino people because it is not true that the Marcos regime was the golden age. Siguro sa mga para sa mga gingharian sa mga Marcos, golden age para sa ilaha, pero para sa mga kabos nga taga-dakbayan, para sa mga mamumuo, para sa mga mag-uuma, sa mga kababayan o sa mga estudyante, dili siya golden age. So mao to siya nga kanang it's a reign of terror, and we can see nga ang pagpasaka or ang pag-implement sa martial law kay nag-cause siya og daghan nga mga inosente nga kinabuhi, which actually led to a lot of uprisings. And going back to the economical massacre and the self-serving interest, Marcos was backed by the US imperialists. So that's why he gained a lot of power to actually execute his plans. So mo to siya nga kanang more than the stories of struggles, we also have the stories of resistance, of the revolutionary optimism to rise up against Marcos' dictatorship. And syempre, being the torchbearer of hope and progress, the youth was at the forefront in fighting against the Marcos dictatorship during that time.
So, grabe jud ang repression sa una. Makita nato like siguro karon nga in a way nibalik ang mga horrors sa una. So in line with that, siguro we'll ask lang, what differences or similarities do you see between the activism of today and that of martial law, including the struggles and efforts involved?
I think the differences is we are stronger, wider, and mas daghan ta karon. Mas also advance ang ato ang ways of engaging a lot of people. When we say exhausting all means, no, natay social media, natay parliaments of the streets, natay table battles and negotiations. So maybe mauna ang similarities nga buhi og nagpabilin ang revolutionary optimism nga naa sa katong during the martial law dictatorship.
So aside pud ana no kay ato jung tan-awon pud nga during the martial law era kay grabe jud ang pagtorture. May beatings, na rape, na ay kana different types of torture katong Russian roulette. Grabe to no. No, and kana with today's democracy sakto to nagkakusog ta, nagka-diverse pud ta, no, during the 1960s era, 1970s sa garang kusog ato kay one political bloc, the CPP, NPA, and other nga mga kuaniya nga mga sister organizations. Karon nanay splits, no, nanay split na ang PM, Partido Manggagawa, nanay Sentro, nanay mga SOCDEM, nanay mga mga Akbayan Party, ngana. So karon makaingon tang mas diverse ang atake ron, na both legislative, mass-oriented, mura sa bibingka method, if we describe it. They pressure from above, they pressure from ubos. And that when we put pressure above and from below, we put heat or we put pressure, and then
So kung sa ako sad na part no, ang balikon siguro nato sa era ni Marcos regime kay sa una ang media gipa-shutdown man gyud, naay mga human rights abuses. Siguro ang sa karon kay ang differences kay wider siya in the scope. Kay sa kung gani sa karon ang activism dili lang gid siya nagakuom sa idea nga about human rights abuses, about sa media. Karon mas wider ang scope nato kay moabot na ganita sa activism when it comes to mental health awareness, moabot na ta sa gender equality, apil na ang gender preference sa atong mga LGBTQIA+ community. Unya ang scope niya kay dili na lang siya nagalimita sa pag-fight sa rights sa human rights against the abuses, apil na sa mga political activists, apil na sad ang mga torture na hitabo og mga patay, kundi mas ni wide siya mo tong giingon ni ate ganina no na diverse siya gud, mas ni dako gid siya, lahi na siya nga pamaagi. Unya difference pud kay naa na social media platforms today, so it's easier to lobby the cause that we want for the government to hear. Mas dali na gid siya, mas dali na siya ikatag, mas dali na siya ipahibaw sa mga katawhan sa masa, mas dali na siya ipasabot sa masa nga inani ang nahitabo.
Karon pod la makaingon jud ta nga like technically and technical wise kay wala man jud martial law karon sa Pilipinas, pero kung atong i-analyze og maayo ang atong conditions karon, political and economical conditions karon, kay nag-agitaw usa ka de facto nga martial law, and dili ra ni siya tungod kang Marcos Jr. pero tungod pod ni sa ginbuhatan sa atong previous or former president nga si Rodrigo Duterte, ihang mga cronies, ihang political dynasty, ug ihang pag-collaborate ni Gloria Arroyo ug ni Marcos Jr. nya. Dira makita nato ang manifestations, mga dili man gini kaayo ingan ka blatant compared sa martial law, pero similar pod siya pareha sa terror bill, ang crackdown sa mga aktivista o maski atong mga developmental volunteers and workers lang, mga inosente ang atong EJK. So kanina mga violent na situations, realities karon kay dili ra pod siya kanang lahi sa martial law, but gani ato ni siyang himuong motivation ug rason nganong makigbisog pata og maayo, kay dili man siya ingana ka obvious sa ubang tao, labi na nga karon kay nag-agi pod tag usa ka economical crisis na sad sa usa ka Marcos nga regime. nahitabo gyapon siya karon. Daghan kayo mga abductions karon gani ang Sirnet kay naka-face og usa ka kaso from Trump charges from the state ang financial terrorism. So kana lang pila-pila lang jud na siya sa unsa atong mga kanang issues karon nga dapat nato jud og pakigbisugan og dapat pud nato hinumduman nga ang pag-resist sa naunang panahon sa martial law kay atong palapdon og ato pa jung i-progress nga dapat involved na jud tanan karon.
All right, thank you so much for the very stimulating discussion so far, no? Now, before we continue with our discussion, let's take a quick break first to reflect on what we've heard so far. It's empowering to hear the insights from our guests about how activism drives social and political change by challenging injustices and holding oppressors and those in power accountable.
Stay with us mga kauban. We've got more stories of struggle to remember, reveal, and resist ahead when we return on Pagsugil Stories of Struggle right here on DYUP Sugbo.
54 ka tuig na ang milabay sukad gideklarar ang balaod militar sa atong nasod. Pero nagpabilin gihapon ang mga epekto sa maong mangit-ngit nga rehimen.
Sobra na ang pagpapahirap sa mamamayang Pilipino. Sobra na ang
Napasiugda sa maong panahon ang pagpanglupig, pagtamak sa tawhanong katungod o pagpahilom sa mga nisupang.
Which may be implemented by the military authorities, but still is a power embodied in the constitution to protect the...
Sa atong paghandom sa mga sakripisyo o kasinitian sa mga nakibisog alang sa kagawasan, atong ipadayon ang paghinumdum sa ilang mga kaagi, pagpadayag sa kamatuuran o pagbatok laban sa panglupig aron mapanalipdan ng atong mga katungod o makuha ang tinud-anay na demokrasya. Remember, reveal, resist.
Uncover the harrowing narratives under the Marcos Sr. regime. Pagsugil, Stories of Struggle.
Stories of Struggle. Let's delve right into the second part of this discussion.
So far, we've been discussing the inspiring journeys of our guests and the challenges that you face as activists. And karon, we delve right into the current context. Have you or your organization na inyong gi-represent karon experienced any form of repression, and how does it shape your modern activism strategies of today?
Of course, dili mo dyan na muhunong ang atake sa estado. Tanan mga progressive na mga organizations, maskig unsa ihang political alignment kay naka-experience jud og harassment sa youth sector hinoon daghan pod ang naka-experience og red tagging dili lang sa estado ug maskig sa ilahang mga universidad ug mga eskwelahan. Daghan pod ta og mga gina-experience pod nga mga kabatan-unan karon nga naka-experience og threat from the state. And sa amoang part sa USC kay makaingon jud mi nga repressive amoang administration, and amoang progressiveness kay naka-threaten siya sa usa ka authoritative na body. Currently kay naka-experience pod mi og militarization sa among campuses, daghan kayo og mga PNP og maskig ganing mga militar sa outside, or by outside I mean the gate in USC. During elections pod ginatry pod og censor ang mga publication materials og mga PR materials sa mga student political parties, and among mga student publications kay naka-experience sad og censorship. Nya amo ang student council sad kay currently kay ginabatol ang disenfranchisement o atake sad sa administrasyon. So usa-usa lang na sa mga experiences pod in a university nga school.
So for kabataan party list no, dili namang gyud na madinay nga kanunay namang gyud na ginared tag ang KPL sukad pa sa una niya kana based on kanang dira sa San Carlos nahitabo nga ang mga military nag-visit natay time na ni-visit sila sa San Carlos. I think it was about NSTP gani nga giapil nila gired tag nila ang Kabataan Party List as usa ka organisasyon daw ang komunista kana no nya based on my personal experience po dili man gyud mawala ang kanang repression o oppression or di man gani labi na red tagging as an activist di gyud na siya mawala moabot sa punto na kana tawgon gyud tag mga salot sa lipunan mga nagani moabot sa punto sad nga may sila mga feeling bright ra kuno ta inana pero dili man gani inana dapat kay as estudyante kanang mga nakatunan nato ginagamit nato to empower the masses so kana pero kana gani bisan sa unsa ka lisod muna balik lang siguro sa rason nga nung nata diri ang kanindot sad kay bisan man gani sa University of San Carlos kay baw naman ta nga mostly privileged gyud ang mga estudyante pero nagkadaghan nagka-empowered ang mga estudyante nga mobarog ug motindog kuyog sa masa.
So, to answer that question, no, dapat i-describe po nato ang current state right now or unsa may ato panganlan ang type of democracy nga naa diri sa Philippines at least currently karon. Gitang tawag na tog elite democracy. When say elite democracy, ang demokrasiya naara sa mga elites, no? Di ka makadaog og election kung wa kay kwarta. Di makadaog ang pobre kung mudagan og election. No? So, kana nga state of democracy manifest na sa organizing, no? We know by constitution na atay right to assembly, 'di ba? But tungod kay ang elite democracy is the dominant ideology. Siya ang anything na mo nga dili base sa interest of the elites kay gub-on niya. So, nana diri sa mga unions, mga organizations, progressive organizations. So, sa amo pong organization, no, naka-experience may with profiling. Grabe kayo, no? No, marag, naghadlok mi, at first, nahadlok ko, no, kay, muko, nag-advocate lamang ko diri workers' rights o women's rights. Ganong gi-profile lamang ko. To the point nga, kana ganing if muuli ka, kung gabi kay murag, di na ka sure kung asa ka dalon. No, murag nga na, murag ma-anxious ka at first, no? Pero, imo po, at first, nahadlo ko. Imo to, pag, later on, naka-realize ko nga, it's not an option to stop fighting, no? If mo stop kog fight, if muundang ko sa kong pagka-aktivista, unsa na may purpose akong life, no? If namulat na ko, pipikit pa ba ako, no? Diba? So, dapat, if nanadyo ka, like, if you're in love with the movement, no, at least I myself is in love with the movement, kay lisod kayo buhian. Lisod kayo buhian, kay tungod kabaw ka, nga sakto ka. Kabaw ka nga nakasasaktong nga direksyon, no? Imong kinabuhi kay wala lang nakabox sa usa ka narrative, no, nga traditional narrative nga muskila ka, makagraduate ka, makatrabaho ka, madato ka, no? Like individualistic kasi ya. So kana, no, nya human kaila na po ang mga pulis nako. No? Mga tanong sila nga, wala lagi kapag lasa na limis. Kuya, wow, kaila na day ka na kuya. So ingan na ba, no? Nya napo union busting. So we know nga in a capitalist state ang direct nga exploited are the workers, no? Sila mang gikawatan og value og profit, no? So napo union busting. Kay unions are when they are very powerful, when they are united, kaya niya ma-topple down si capitalism. And that's a big threat to the capitalist state and to elite democracy. No? So kana no ni manifest na to the point kay yung mga matay nga union leaders, at least ang political bloc dili kay nga nakadaghan, at least, no. So kana gina-preserve jud namo ang mga intellectuals na mga leaders. So as much as possible kanang try ta nga dili kay daghan mga wa, no, diri kay we need these intellectuals to continue fighting throughout their lives. So kana.
Thank you for that, Ate Kling.
Akong take pod kay natagitawag nga ang estadong gipit sa pasismo kumakapit. So, ang pag-explain sa pasismo, it is when government officials use its armed forces against the people. So, mo na ang pinakadagway sa pasismo nga naata karon. Og isip usa ka nasudnon og demokratiko nga organisasyon sulod og gawas sa ato ang tunghaan, naka-experience mi nga kana gi red tag, gi terror tag mismo sa estado og sa gitawag natog National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict or NKKLKL nga kailata nga counterproductive, corrupt and very anti-student, anti-people, tanan na lang bati na as NKKLKL. So mao na nga kanang ka-experience mi nga gi-effortan jud mi nila, gimuan mi nila pubmat, gimuan mi nila og kanang video nga kanang NKE recruiter nga yes, mang-recruit me pero sa mga estudyante, mang-recruit me para i-fight amo ang rights to organize, amo ang rights to education, and those are basic nga mga katungod unta nga gigrant sa constitution. So unsa man atong tan-aw ana that the state no longer serve its people's interest, that the state is carrying only the interest of their own. So moto nga mo-agree ko nga katong elite democracy no in its highest form is fascism. So mao na nga kanang in a semi-colonial, semi-feudal nga country, we can see nga daghan kaayo og kanang gipahimuslan no nga kanang naara sa 1% gatuyok ang gitawag na to resources or ang wealth sa ato ang nasod. So mao na nga kanang daghan kay siya og kanang pambuhaton nga makip niya iyang status quo, and its main language gyud kay violence. So mao na nga kanang ako ang personal experience pod kay katong naligsan ko og jeep sa UP Mindanao because traffic an enforcer forced the jeepney driver nga molarga bisag kanang tungod sa peer pressure kay nakaahat siya og padagan, and mooto nga ang resulta kay na-injure jud mi sa former student region. So usa na siya ka manifestation no unsa gani ka dire ang situation when it comes to our democratic rights. So I hope nga kanang sa bisag kinsa nga maabot sa to ang tingog karong udtuha karong hapuna kay mukaan gyud ta makighimamat mahibaw sa kung unsay mga current nga mga issues nga naa nato karon, and sa mas taas pa nga ang maorganisa og mga organisasyon.
So, given the blatant repression of the state towards activists, no, nga makita gyud currently karon, and siguro how do you reconcile the lessons from the struggles of the past activists under na Marcos Sr. In your service today as activists? Very briefly. Like how the lessons of the past.
Sige no, sa kilusan kay when you are in love with the movement, the more ka nga iredtag, the more ka magka-militante. At least that's how most of us nga naredtag kay ni transform, no. At first magtuobi nga mugamay mi, but on the contrary kay baliday mas niisog mi, mas daring mi, no, mas daring nami mo to fight, no, to face this fascist nga state, no. So with regards sa sa past na to those who came before us, I respect and I honor their sacrifices, no. And as the youth leaders today's society today, no, okay, dapat dalhon na to, di ta mo hunong until kamatayon na ni ang atong pakipagbisog, no. Dili siya muundang after graduation nato mo padayon gapon ni bisag mahimo na tag mga trabahante, no. So inga na pagpadayon lang jud until mahuman na ni tanan no. It takes a lot of centuries.
Siguro kung sa ako ang pinaka-importante nga lesson nga akong makatunan sa Marcos regime sa unang panahon, no, kay dili gid siya mo give up, dili kay daghan ang naghatag sa ilang kinabuhi daghan ang nawad-an og kinabuhi, daghan ang na-torture, daghan ang nakuhaan og ilahang right to expression or gani na abuso sa unang panahon para sa freedom nga naa nato karon. So it should be an avenue for us nga tan-awon nato gani as a motivation bang mopadayon ta. Kay sila gani andam sila mamatay, andam sila magpakamatay para sa future nga naata karon. So kana ang ako man good reason as to why I'm here, good pinaka reason, because I want a better future for myself, for my family, and for the masses. So dili gid ni siya laban lang sa present, dili gid ni siya laban lang sa kung unsa ang present na deserve nato, but the future that we deserve in sa umaabot na panahon, especially for the next generation.
So kanang unsaon na to pag reconnect na to sa ato ang advocacies or atong resistance from the past, isip sa membro o isip chairperson sa Gabriela Youth USC. Ang ako ang say tawag ani pag connect with the resistance of martial law is the liberation of our children, of our women, and that comes the destruction of capitalism and imperialism. And dili pod nato na makabot kung dili ta makigbisog hantod karon. Duod gani nga nagkagrabe ang human rights violation, nagka-violente atong estado, mas more pa nga dapat mag-organisa ta og mga tao para mukuyog og pakigbisog nato. And kana like dapat nato hinumduman nga ang atong kabatanunan, atong mga kababainhan kay mo ni siya magpadayon sa ato ang future nga gina-mention pod sa uban nato nga mga speakers dire, og mas gani labi natong hinumduman og labi natong palabdan ang liberation para sa atong kababainhan o kabatanunan. Dili ra pod siya different sa martial law. I think the more militant we are, the closer we are to achieving genuine liberation, free from the US imperialist and free from the fascist and capitalistic regime.
Ate Cling. Mo-agree ko sa mga previous speakers, and natay notion no nga gitawag nga the youth is the best fighting age, pero si youth na siya characteristic nga pwede siya mapunta sa mga reactionary to keep the status quo, climb up siya sa social triangle nga ladder, or mukuyog siya sa gipahimuslan sa batakang masa in order to live with them, in order to realize that their struggle is not an individual struggle but a collective struggle. So to reconcile what has happened in the past, I believe that we carry on the revolutionary optimism nga gipakamatian sa to ang mga student martyrs, sa ato ang mga tao nga nag-una nato nga maong ni pave sa dalan in order for us to have this level of democracy and this level of kanang freedom that we have right now. Kay we are not really truly free, only the chains are longer this time. So we still have to forge a society, a future that is just and right nga kanang we will no longer have to fight if great equalizer ba ang upkat. We will no longer have to listen to news every day nga nanasay bagong giabdak, nanasay bagong gipriso, nanasay bagong gipasakahan og trump up charges. So mao na nga kanang we carry on the fight, we carry on the militants, and we carry on the second propaganda movement.
Thank you so much.
Last question. Dugang kadasig kanatong tanan, no? Salamat kayo for being here, and thank you for dedicating the time to amplify your voice, to remember, reveal, resist as activists with us today.
So, in behalf of DYUP Sugbo and the 1081 exhibit, we thank you for your bravery, dedication, and sense of justice in serving the masses through your personal commitment with activism, often at your own personal cost, especially amid state repression under another Marcos in power.
And that wraps up today's episode of Pagsugil, Stories of Struggle. A big thank you to our guest,
Ella, Tikling, Marie, Grace. Thank you for sharing your invaluable insights with us today. We hope today's discussion has inspired you, and thank you for tuning in to Pagsugil, Stories of Struggle. This is Fab.
And this is Steven, signing off. Salamat kayo ug dugang kadasig sa tanan.
Repression, corruption, dictatorship, torture. Uncover the harrowing narratives under the Marcos Sr. regime. Bridging history, confronting realities, reviving resistance. Pagsugil, Stories of Struggle.
You're listening to DYUP Sugbo, Kauban Nimo. Ang imong kauban, di kabiyaan. DYUP Sugbo, Kauban Nimo. From highs to lows, from laughter to tears, kauban nimo ang DYUP Sugbo.
Trigger warning. The following reading contains violent content which may be too intense for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Tagubdob sa kamatuoran. Remember, reveal, resist. Ato ang pagapaminawon ang mga sugilanon sa mga biktima nga miharap sa mga adlaw sa kahadlok ug pangdaog-daog sa martial law. Ang ilang mga kasinatian nagpadayag sa tinuod nga nahitabo ug pinaagi sa paghandom sa ilang mga sakripisyo. Dili lang nato atubangon ang brutal nga mga kamatuoran sa atong kasaysayan, kundili gipamatud-an usab nato ang atong pasalig nga lig-ong mubarog batok sa bisan unsang matang sa pagpanglupig. Karon, paminawon kanato ang istorya ug kaagi ni Dr. Russell B. Mujares.
Russell B. Mujares was a journalist from Cebu who one day found himself swept into the turbulence of martial law. This was a time when dissent was dangerous, especially for those who wrote about the truth, as truth was often buried with those who dared to share it. It was during the early days of when President Marcos declared martial law that Mujares was invited by military intelligence agents to Camp Serio Osmeña, a euphemism that masks the harsh reality he was to face. His crime? Writing columns in the Freeman that were critical of the government. Mujares was also associated with militant student groups like Kabataang Makabayan and Samahang Demokratikong Kabataan. In the eyes of the regime, he was a voice that needed to be silenced. But Mujares' experience was unlike the harsher stories that echoed across the country. Cebu was in a hotbed of rebellion, so his captivity felt strangely different. He wasn't thrown into a dark, cramped cell. Instead, he and other political detainees were housed in soldiers' barracks. They could have visitors, eat better meals brought by their families, and even, on rare occasions, get day passes to leave the camp under guard. It was a surreal existence where freedom and confinement seemed to blend together. After just 2.5 months, Mujares was released, lucky by many standards. Still, this isn't to say that he is now completely free. Even after his release, he was kept on a tight leash, with limits on where he could go and what he could say. Dr. Mujares, an esteemed national artist of the Philippines for literature, shares a profound insight about martial law. He sees it as a means for isolating citizens through the elimination of press freedom, effectively spreading fear. He observed that despite prior conversations about martial law, the lack of precedents left people unprepared for its sudden implementation. During its dark days, the repression of press freedom intensified isolation and fear. However, Mujares feels that print journalism, despite its slower pace and limited reach when compared to electronic media, may combat the sense of isolation created by martial law through promoting discussion, reflection, and depth while cultivating. However, Mujares feels that print journalism, despite its slower pace, However, Mujares feels that Mojares feels that print journalism, despite its slower pace and limited reach when compared to electronic media, may combat the sense of isolation created by martial law through promoting discussion, reflection, and depth while cultivating a sense of community. However, Mojares feels that print journalism, despite its slower pace and limited reach when compared to electronic media, may combat the sense of isolation created by martial law through promoting discussion, reflection, and depth while cultivating a sense of community and informed discourse. Print journalism builds deep relationships with an established community of readers that are critical in maintaining communication and solidarity among individuals during repressive regimes.
Sa atong paghandom sa martial law, kining mga istorya sa mga biktima ang atong pagabitbiton. Nga magpahinumdum kanato sa mga adlaw sa kadulom ug pagpakigbisog. Ang ilang mga istorya nga kaniadto gipahilom karon nagbarog isip usa ka gamhanan nga tawag sa paghinumdum sa nangagi, pagpadayag sa mga tinago nga kamatuoran ug pagsukol sa mga puwersa nga naghulga sa atong kagawasan. Ang ilang mga tingog bisan pa sa pagkahugno magpabilin nga usa ka masilay nga syagit sa paglaom ug kaisog. Ipakita nato ang mga istorya aron mapukaw ang atong pagpanaw sa kagawasan ug mga katungod.
Kay taas ng pader sa aking paligid.
Trigger warning. The following reading contains violent content which may be too intense for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Tagubtob sa kamatuoran. Remember, reveal, resist. Ato ang pagapaminawon ang mga sugilanon sa mga biktima nga miharap sa mga adlaw sa kahadlok ug pangdaog-daog sa martial law. Ang ilang mga kasinatian nagpadayag sa tinuod nga nahitabo ug pinaagi sa paghandom sa ilang mga sakripisyo. Dili lang nato atubangon ang brutal nga mga kamatuoran sa atong kasaysayan, kundili gipamatud-an usab nato ang atong pasalig nga lig-ong mubarog batok sa bisan unsang matang sa pagpanglupig. Karon, paminahon ka nato ang istorya ug kaagi ni Attorney Democrito Barcenas.
A jeep full of military officers arrived at his residence in Karkar City, their presence heavy with menace. They handed him an invitation, one that left no room for refusal. It was the afternoon of September 23rd, 1972, 2 days after Marcos Sr. imposed martial law. At 33 years old, Attorney Democrito Barcenas was detained at Camp Serio Osmeña, where he experienced psychological torture designed to break the will of all detainees, leaving them with trauma they would carry for life, all within a span of 90 days. Threats from General Luis Amor, Cebu PC Zone Commander, loomed over them, warning that they would soon face subversion charges and a military tribunal or be sent to Corregidor Island for indefinite detention. This psychological abuse caused sleepless nights for Barcenas and the other detainees. The mere thought of being sent to Corregidor Island sent shivers down everyone's spine, knowing their families wouldn't be able to visit them. His pregnant wife, who would commute 80 kilometers back and forth carrying their 1-year-old child, could only spend a mere 5 minutes with him. When his wife gave birth to their second child, Barcenas was permitted to visit her in the hospital, but only under the watchful eyes of 4 fully armed soldiers, as if he were a criminal. On December 23 of 1972, he was released without any formal charges or investigation into his alleged involvement with the progressive movement. The horrors of that cell are etched into Barcenas' soul, a torment that will never fade, and for him and every other victim of martial law, the scars only deepened their resolve. What they endured will never be forgotten, not as a mark of defeat, but as a searing reminder to fight back and stand against the tyranny that tried to break them.
Sa atong paghandom sa martial law, kining mga istorya sa mga biktima ang atong pagabitbiton. Nga magpahinumdum ka nato sa mga adlaw sa kadulom ug pagpakigbisog. Ang ilang mga istorya nga kaniadto gipahilom karon nagbarog isip usa ka gamhanan nga tawag sa paghinumdum sa nangagi. Pagpadayag sa mga tinago nga kamatuoran ug pagsukol sa mga puwersa nga naghulga sa atong kagawasan. Ang ilang mga tingog bisan pa sa pagkahugno magpabilin nga usa ka masilay nga syagit sa paglaom ug kaisog. Ipakita nato ang mga istorya aron mapukaw ang atong pagpanaw sa kagawasan ug mga katungod.
Kay taas ng pader sa aking paligid.
DYUP kauban nimo.
Kini ang batbat, kini ang batbat, kini ang batbat. Handumanan sa kagahapon, kagawasan gilubong. Mga tingog ipahilom, mga damgo giwatang. Apan ang kamatuuran diligyod natong mapungang bisan unsa ka kangipit at tunay ka hayag gamot tumaw. Sa mga sugilanon kahapon ipadayon kita sa pagbangon. Ang kasakit sa kagahapon pagdala og hustisya sa kadugay. Kini ang batbat, kini ang batbat, kini ang batbat.
Isn't it ironic that the president who topped the bar exams, a test requiring a deep understanding of human rights, ended up leading one of the most brutal human rights abuses in the country?
Diba ate? Like, they are supposed to uphold justice sa atong society through their knowledge sa law. But siya na noon mismo ang nag-impose of injustices sa atong nasod. Girl, asa ang konsensya?
Lagi no, being smart doesn't always guarantee something good. Sometimes, and dili tanan ha, being smart means you can figure out solutions and reason your way through problems. But it also means you might create problems and find justifications for them. It's really a double-edged sword.
So, maayong adlaw and welcome to Batbat, usa ka espesyal nga programa nga mag-abli sa putahan sa atong kagahapon. Ang Batbat usa ka inisyatiba sa mga estudyante sa Philippine Studies 21 sa UP Cebu. Ari sa Batbat, atong istoryahan ang mga panghitabo og isyu kabahin sa balaod militar. Ako di ay si Rika.
Ako si Kisa.
Ug ako pod si John.
So, maayong udto sa inyong tanan o sa tanan na minaw sa atong programa karon. For the first part of the radio series of Batbat, we will be discussing the historical context and reasons for declaring martial law. So to start off, nganong importante man jud nga atong hisgutan ang mga panghitabo sa kagahapon labi na ang martial law?
Tama ka diha no, Rika. So basically, martial law or Proclamation 1081 was declared by Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr. on September 21, 1972. This shifted the country from civilian governance to military rule, giving Marcos full control as both president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. In theory, it's meant to be used in times of national crisis, when public security is at risk, to restore order and address urgent issues. But here's the thing. With that much power in one person's hands, the line between protecting the nation and abusing that power can easily be crossed. If the wrong leader holds that kind of authority, martial law can quickly become a tool for control rather than justice.
Tinuod ate, no? Kung imong huna-hunaon, kung kadakuan ang akagahong mahatag sa isa ka tawo, lisod kaayo nga dili maabusar. So unsa may rason ate ni Marcos sa pag-implement sa martial law?
So gi-justify ni Marcos by claiming it was necessary to address national threats, the biggest of which was the communist insurgency. According to him, leftist groups were a threat to democracy, and if not contained, could lead to widespread chaos and unrest. But it wasn't just the communists he targeted. Marcos also pointed to right-wing factions, saying they too were plotting against the government. He used this argument to create a sense of crisis, claiming that the country was under attack from both sides, left and right, and that only martial law could restore order. In addition to this, ningon po siya nga ang secessionist movements sa Mindanao were a direct threat to the country's unity. He argued that the Muslim secessionists wanted to break away from the Philippines, and martial law was necessary to preserve the nation's territorial integrity.
Kung ato jud tan-awon, kami jud niya tanan angle sa from communist to secessionist to create this sense nga under attack ang Pilipinas. And of course, this made it easier for him to justify martial law as the only solution.
Di pa ganit tapos, he also used domestic instability as a justification, blaming private armies and political warlords for the violence and lawlessness in the country. According to him, these elements could only be controlled through the military powers granted under martial law. Marcos even claimed that martial law was a response to economic decline, saying it would stabilize the country and attract foreign investment. He presented it as an economic measure that would bring growth, despite the fact that his administration eventually led the country into massive debt and corruption.
And up until now, no? Dapat gihapon ng utanga.
Unfortunately, so, grabe ka far-reaching ang consequences na pila na ka-generations of Filipinos ang naglisod tungod sa economic mismanagement na dala sa martial law. And along with this, giblame po ni Marcos ang criminality, of course, saying that rampant crimes during the first quarter storm were out of control. He claimed that martial law was the only way to regain law and order, using this as a pretext to expand police and military powers. And finally, Marcos accused the oligarchy, the wealthy elite, of perpetuating social inequality, saying that martial law would break their hold on power and redistribute wealth to the people. And of course, that sounds so appealing, no? This is what helped him win support from many who believed his narrative of creating a more equitable society.
Hala, wait sa. So, appeal ang oligarchs. Di ba siya gani maoy na pasimuno sa kurakot na gobyerno?
Tama gyud ka diha, Ri. Sa tinuoray, Marcos just wanted to extend his time in power. Ginamit na niya ang martial law as a cover for his own greed for control. Ug bisan unsaon pa niya og litok sa tanang rason, dili matago ang kamatuoran nga he led the Philippines into one of its darkest periods, a chapter we must never forget.
Maujud kisa. The impact of that time is something we can't forget. And that's why it's important we keep discussing it today.
When we come back, we will talk about the events that led up to the declaration of martial law. So stay tuned and don't go anywhere, guys.
Ang akong lulo usa ka aktivista sa panahon sa martial law na nagbarug alang sa katungod sa mga trabahante.
Ang akong igsoon usa ka leader nga nag-organisa alang sa hustisya. Wala siya maghilom pero gipahilom siya. Pag human sa rally wala na namo siya nakita usab.
Sama sa balaod militar, kalit na lang nahanaw kauban sa kangitngit sa kagabihion ang atong kaubang leader estudyante ug ang mga aktivista.
Gitawag silang mga kaaway sa gobyerno tungod sa ilang pagsukol. Libo-libo na ang gipatay. Libo-libo na pod ang mga kalit na hanaw.
Lima na kadekada ang nilabay sukad nga gipatuman ang Proclamation 1081 o Balaod Militar. Sulod sa siyam ka tuig sa Balaod Militar, 70,000 ka tao ang napriso, 34,000 ang natorture, ug lapas sa 3,000 ka tao ang gipatay.
Ang mga panghitabo kaniadto kay wala mahilayo sa sitwasyon karon. Daghan gihapon ang mga nangawala, gipang priso, giwad-an og pangtawhanong katungod.
Apan ang pakigbisog sa tawhanong katungod, wala kini matapos. Ang tingog sa mga estudyante milano subay sa panahon. Salmot uban kanila. Ayaw tuguti na mausab pagbalik ang kasaysayan.
Never again, never forget.
Never again to martial law!
Mahala, nas pa ito nun, ay?
Mao gyud. Sus, sa panahon sa martial law sa una, makapalit na guro tag hapit 50 ka kilo nga bugas anang 50 pesos.
Ante, angkol, kabalo ba mo nga dito sa panahon sa martial law nagsugod ang pagtaas sa presyo sa mga palitunon?
Sure, oy, binuang. Kita man gani pinakadato sa tibok asya ato sa una.
So, sa siudana naman good to call. Sa wala pagideklara ang martial law, naglisod na puntadaan, nigamay ang balor sa piso ug nitaas ang dato sa unemployment. Nabaon pa jutas utang sa World Bank sukan nagsugod ang giyera sa Middle East, nya nitaas ang presyo sa gas ug niubos ang atong kita.
Mao ba dong? Nakabot pa man gud mi sa panahon sa martial law. Hapsayer man to sa una.
Ang misinformation mahimo makapagrabi sa mga hagit sa ekonomiya ug sosyal nga kagubot. Isip mga katawhan sa atong nasod, kinahanglan nato nga kritikal nga susiwon ang mga tinubdan sa balita, i-verify ang mga pangagkon ug i-share ang husto nga impormasyon aron mapaligo ang atong mga komunidad. Ang atong awhag, never again, never forget. Paminaw sa atong paghisgot bahin sa Balaod Militar diri sa Batbat, usa ka espesyal nga programa nga mag-abli sa pultahan sa kagahapon. Kabatan-unan, hinumdumi ang kasaysayan ug kamatauran sa Balaod Militar.
DYUP kauban nimo.
And now we are back, ano? So karon atong storyaan kung unsa jud di ay ang nitabo ani nga mga panahona nganong naay civil unrest. Ug maora ba ni ang motivation sa pag-declare ni Marcos og martial law?
Actually, John, no, there were rumors going around that Marcos wanted to run again for the third time, but it was already against the 1935 Constitution. Dapat 8 consecutive years lang man good pwede mag-serve as president. However, blinded by his greed for wealth and power, he came up with the martial law. And according sa Martial Law Museum, there were events that served as warning signs leading up to the declaration of martial law.
Okay, so what were these events?
So the first event was the Oplan Merdeka and Jabida massacre. So the Oplan Merdeka, it was a covert operation in 1967 that was initiated by the Marcos administration wherein nagdeploy sila og Moro soldiers to reclaim Sabah. However, on March 18, 1968, an estimated 200 Moro soldiers were executed by the military of the Philippine government. And ang cause ani was believed to be the reluctance sa mga trainees to carry out their operation kay it entailed killing fellow Muslims in Sabah. Og in addition ana kay they were getting impatient kay ilang promised pay of 50 pesos was never given. And because they demanded for better food and lodging sa ilang training camp. So their bodies were burned and thrown into Manila Bay. And this horrifying incident led to the unrest and distrust within the Muslim community.
Grabe ate, no? Igo ra ganit na ngayo og compensation sa ginapromise sa ilaha.
Correct, Jude John. And then another nasad nga event is the 1969 re-election of Marcos. It was overshadowed by fraud and corruption kay he reportedly used foreign currency reserves to fund his campaign. And then this would then contribute to the country's future debt issues. Og third nga event is ang first quarter storm. So ang first quarter storm, kuani siya kanang series of protests from January to March 1970. And it was driven by widespread dissatisfaction following Marcos's re-election in 1969. So ang mga gipaglaban jud ani sa mga protesters no kay nagdemanda sila for a non-partisan constitutional convention ug ni-oppose sila sa US involvement sa Philippine affairs ug ni-resist sila sa US imperialism. Ang mga protests escalated into violent clashes with the police and especially during sa battle in Mendiola nga niresulta og mga kamatayon. Ang mga demonstrators sad also condemned police raids on schools sa University of the East now and called for democratic reforms. The protests culminated in large rallies and marches, often ending in violent confrontations. So, mo to siya nga gi-highlight ang opposition sa Marcos regime ug sa US influence in the country.
Yeah, mo day na ang first quarter storm. Biro jud biyan ako nga bagyo na.
Dili, uy, ato nang gawas tanan tao ug ni protesta against Marcos ug sa US. Kinana say ikat-upat nga nahitabo which was on August 21, 1971 nga ang Plaza Miranda bombing during a Liberal Party rally wherein 2 grenade explosions injured several party officials. In response ani nga panghitabo, si Marcos iyang gisuspend ang privilege of the writ of habeas corpus nga mauntay mo babag sa mga unlawful nga arrests. So, sa pagsuspend ani, na-allow ang authorities to arrest individuals without warrants, curtailing civil liberties. And this action was then viewed as a prelude to martial law. And it was justified by the government as necessary due to the alleged threat of communist groups which were blamed for the Plaza Miranda bombing. So, ang last and final event that ultimately led na jud sa declaration of martial law kay the assassination of Defense Minister Juan Ponce Enrile on September 22, 1972 in Mandaluyong. So, ang vehicle ni Enrile ato was shot multiple times. Pero, this was revealed to be staged by Marcos's former confidant, Mijares, and by Enrile himself in 1986 after napahawa si Marcos in power. And then he confirmed that the incident had been fabricated as part of a broader plan to legitimize martial law. Pero in 2012, si Enrile iyan i-retract nga claim despite the numerous accounts of him saying that it was staged. So, gikan sa assassination ni Enrile, the next day, ni-declare na dayon si Marcos o martial law.
Well, thank you, Rika, for providing us some context and insights on what really happened during those years. Karon magdula sa ta, guys. So, welcome to Real or Fake, Martial Law Edition. In this segment, I will present a series of intriguing statements, and kamo, Rika and John, will identify if they are real or fake. So here's how this works. I will present some statements in relation to the context of martial law, and each one is either real, which means true, or fake, which means false. After each statement, I will give you 10 seconds to think, and after that, I will reveal the correct answer, whether it is real or fake, and open a short discussion after. So, unsa man? Andam na ba mo, Rika and John?
Andam na! Let's go.
Alright, so statement number 1. Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr. was a highly decorated war hero with genuine medals for his World War II service.
I think fake.
Oh no, it's fake. It was revealed that his war medals were fake and there was no record of his alleged leadership in guerrilla units during World War II.
Ni, unsa man na uy, gipalit na ang medals para kuno decorated. Saan na siya Christmas tree ate?
So second statement. The primary motivation behind the declaration of martial law was to address the imminent end of Marcos's presidency.
I think ate fake.
Sorry, John, but it's real. Marcos declared martial law to extend his presidency beyond the constitutional limits, to suppress opposition, and to maintain control. So, question number 3. Ang martial law kay nagdala og economic prosperity.
I would have to say fake.
Oh no, fake, may tama ka rin. Despite claims of progress, martial law led to economic decline due to widespread corruption, massive foreign debt, and mismanagement. From being the tiger of Asia, the country transitioned into the title of the sick man of Asia. So okay, last statement, guys. human rights abuses were isolated incidents.
Oh no! Fake!
Sadly, tumpak, human rights abuses were systematic and widespread during martial law. Thousands of individuals were arrested, tortured, and disappeared, with many instances of extrajudicial killings. So salamat ninyo guys no sa pag-participate ani atong pakulo. O karon ato na sad ipasa ang floor to John apan siya na sad ang magstorya sa last topic nato today.
Ayan, so we discussed earlier about the justifications of Marcos in declaring martial law and also its context. And now, let us dive deeper on the effects of martial law on the Filipinos. Ayan, so we will be focusing on 3 factors. Number 1, the state of human rights. Number 2, the economic effects. And number 3, the media.
So akong pangutana dyan, unsa day ang kahimtang sa human rights atong panahon sa martial law?
So nindot no na nangutana ka ni ate, dili na to ikalimod nga daghan jud ang human rights violations na nahitabo. Daghan ba ang napriso? Check! According to the Batas Militar documentary, notable people in the opposition like parehas nila ni Ninoy Aquino, ni Jose Diokno, and other people who deemed enemies of Marcos, they were captured and detained in different military camps during the day mismo nga the martial law was publicly announced on September 23, 1972. And around 30,000 people were also detained in these military camps and stockades after just a few months. And throughout the whole duration of martial law, around 70,000 people were imprisoned. Sunod, daghan ba ang mga na-tortured? Check! According to the Amnesty International report, there were estimated 34,000 who were victims of torture by the armed forces of the Philippines. Daghan pud ba ang mga nangamatay? Check na check! Around 3,240 ng mga tao, they were killed, and also, this does not account for those who disappeared or what we call as mga desaparecidos.
Kuan pa day John, kumusta ang ekonomiya sa panahon sa martial law?
So ayan, so the years 1972 to 1976, these were the best years of the Marcos administration since the economy was quite good as the GDP or the gross domestic product went up and also a balance of payment surplus was felt due to the price increase of exports, especially for sugar and coconut. And also, technocrats and professional managers like sila Paterno, si Gerardo Sicat, and si Cesar Verata, they were hired by Marcos to help manage the economy. But ultimately, crony capitalism also took place during the term of Marcos. So, bali, ang mga immediate family members ni Ferdinand o ang iyang asawa na si Imelda, and also the friends of Marcos, they gained business control on most of the industries. So, there were 48 companies all in all for Ferdinand's family alone, which includes mga businesses in insurance, banking, real estate, mga shipping companies, tobacco, and also mga food processing. And as for the Imelda's family aside, Imelda's brother Kokoy gained 11 companies, including those from the Lopez's family, which was the owner of ABS-CBN, and also Kokoy became the ambassador to the US. Also, other cronies are those who play golf with Ferdinand. So these are either mga classmates, friends, or those ng mga ni-support siyang electoral campaigns. Some of them gained contracts for the construction of expressways, ni-acquire og haciendas of banana and coconut plantations, and became the dealer of cars, mga nagmonopolize sa cigarette filter industry, and also took over media outlets and even San Miguel Corporation.
Okay, so gihatag ni niya sa iyang mga kaila.
Yes, so ayan, to favor the businesses of his cronies, Marcos released presidential decrees and also mga letters of instruction to support them. But however, crony capitalism caused the manufacturing sector to stagnate because most of these industries or projects given to the cronies either went bankrupt or were ineffective. And aside from that, the Philippines' debt during the Marcos administration was from almost $300 million in 1965 at the start of his presidential term to about $2.5 billion in 1970, then rose up to $25 billion by 1985. And it took 21 years for the country to recover and have the same GDP levels as of 1982. And aside from foreign debt, Marcos was also known for the embezzlement of funds, where around $4 billion worth of ill-gotten wealth was recovered by the Presidential Commission on Good Governance or PCGG in July 2014 from Marcos' accounts, his relatives, and also his cronies.
How about sa me?
Nako, kay Bonacos inyong ikatulong nga pangutana. Kumusta ang media ni atong mga martial law, Well, the Philippine media during martial law was, of course, filtered and censored. There were times that the radio only played music without any news broadcasts, and this was due to when Marcos released a letter of instruction on September 22, 1972, where he gave the military the power to take over several media outlets to prevent them from voicing out against the government. Also, there were several notable journalists who were arrested, like sina Teodoro Locsin Sr. from the Philippine Free Press, and also si Chino Roses of the Manila Times. And also, Eugenio Lopez Jr., which is the owner of ABS-CBN, was also arrested after being accused of being involved in the plan to kill Marcos. And eventually, only those media outlets regulated by Marcos and his cronies were allowed to operate to help further amplify Marcos Sr.'s propaganda. So there were even stories from the news journalists and editors that the censor, which usually military, they would sit next to the editor and would read the manuscript and decide whether or not to publish the article they made. And because of these limitations, Mosquito Press existed and had their operations underground. So this became an outlet for the activists and journalists to write the real happenings of martial law and also to voice out their opinions against the government. And some examples of these Mosquito Press are the Pahayagang Malaya and also the Mr. and Miss Special Edition.
Okay, so thank you for that, John, no? And thank you, Sad Ate Kisa, for all your fruitful discussions. So that's it for our discussion on the context of martial law. To sum up, we discussed three main topics under the context of martial law. First, we examined the Marcos regime's reasons and justifications for the implementation of martial law. And second, the events that led to it. And third, we explored the impacts of it, focusing on the political, social, and economic factors. Plus, we also proved and debunked some statements during our exciting Real or Fake segment.
Ayan, so to wrap today's discussion, let us have a short reflection lang. Why are we understanding the context of martial law in the first place? And also, why is this important? Well, recognizing the realities of martial law help us grasp the historical impact and consequences of Marcos's dictatorship, including its lasting effects on political and social structures and the ongoing effects on human rights in our Philippine democracy. And as scholars ng bayan, we have to remain critical and informed. Educating ourselves and our fellow students about the historical truths of martial law is crucial since we are still experiencing the effects of the Marcos regime up to this day. And more so that his son, Bongbong Marcos, is in power today. We must not allow power to be misused again, and we must not allow history to repeat itself.
So we had a very productive discussion today. In behalf of our team, we would like to thank everyone for tuning in, and we hope that you learned a lot from our program's first episode. Tune in next Friday for our next episode with a discussion on the propaganda machine, language and imagery of the new society. This has been Kisa,
together with Rika,
and of course me, John.
And this is Batbat, Kabatanunan, hinumdumi ang balaod militar. Scholar ng bayan, ngayon ay lumalaban.
Sa mga sugilan ng kahapon, ipadayon kita sa pagbangon. Ang kasakit sa kagahapon, magdala ang hustisya sa kadugayan. Kini ang batbat, kini ang batbat, kini ang batbat.
Sure nga ilang ginamit tapos karon kay wala ang imong makita na lang nga lights kay naa na sa fed like na
Nakakaloko, crazy local fight. Crazy local fight.
What's up, scholars? We are coming back with a bang! It's another academic year, and we have plenty of surprises awaiting just for you. This is me, DJ Minz, for Season 3 of NKKLKL Crazy Local Finds, where we uncover Cebu's hottest spots, hidden gems, and must-visit locations in the heart of Cebu.
That's right, it's me, DJ Rain, and for this season's comeback of Monday Mysteries, this isn't your typical NKKLKL episode. Today, we have a special guest with us. Let's welcome Sir Lloyd from Isla del Cafe, the newest sensation among escolars, known for its famous 39 and 40.
Kay taas ng pader sa aking paligid, munting pisngi ng langit ang tanging nasisilip, mutya kong tinatanging laging naisip. Pagkat pagtangis ng mutya'y lubusan kong bati. O mutyang ginigiliw na lukob sa dalita, ang mapaligaya kay tanging ninanasa. Ang kundiman kong ito'y pagpugay sa iyong ganda, gandang namumukadkad pag wala ka ng luha. Huwag kang malungkot, sinta, sa aking pagkawalay. Ano man ang sapitin, gunita mo ay taglay. Ang lahat ng aking lakas na lalabi pang buhay sa iyong kapakanan, aking ialay. Huwag kang malungkot, sinta, sa aking pagkawalay. Anong man ang sapitin, gunita mo ang taglay. Ang lahat ng aking lakas na lalabi pang buhay sa iyong kapakanan, aking ialay. Butihing mutya, bayan ko.
Following reading contains violent content which may be too intense for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Tagubtob sa kamatuoran. Remember, reveal, resist. Ato ang pagapaminahon ang mga sugilanon sa mga biktima nga miharap sa mga adlaw sa kahadlok ug pangdaog-daog sa martial law. Ang ilang mga kasinatian nagpadayag sa tinuod nga nahitabo ug pinaagi sa paghandom sa ilang mga sakripisyo. Dili lang nato atubangon ang brutal nga mga kamatuoran sa atong kasaysayan, kundili gipamatud-an usab nato ang atong pasalig nga lig-ong mubarog batok sa bisan unsang matang sa pagpanglupig. Karon, paminahon kanato ang istorya ug kaagi ni Maria Reca Escudero Ruedas.
Her real name was Maria Reca Escorido Ruedas. She was the eldest daughter of 8 children of a provincial government official and a public elementary school teacher. She witnessed the intense militarization of her native province and the atrocities committed by state forces. While pursuing her undergraduate studies, she became active in the student movement, dividing her time between school and helping workers and the urban poor organize their protest actions. She had deepened her commitment to work for social change. She was 18 when the house she was staying in Pardo, Cebu was raided by operatives of the Philippine Constabulary Integrated National Police, or PCINP. It was late at night on May 21, 1980, and the occupants who were arrested, 9 in all, were members of the Provincial Youth and Students and Bureau of the Communist Party of the Philippines. An arrest, search, and seizure order had been issued against them for allegedly violating the Republic Act 1700, or the Anti-Subversion Law. When the group was brought to Camp Lapu-Lapu in Lahog, Cebu City, she realized that it was not just the 9 of them, as she saw 12 others in the office. The interrogation was harsh and took several days. They were deprived of sleep, verbally abused, and threatened with rape and torture. When they were detained, women detainees were specifically targeted for harassment. Whenever they bathed, the prison guards would peep through holes, doing it not very discreetly. When they were informed that Pope John Paul II would visit Cebu and celebrate a mass at the Camp Lapu-Lapu Chapel, they planned to get the attention of the Pope and would launch a hunger strike where they only had water, salt, and biscuits. However, the military had locked them up in their cell and covered the barred windows with tarpaulin. Thus, the detainees held a prolonged noise barrage instead. The detainees continued their hunger strike even after the papal visit, which lasted 25 days. This protest bore fruit 3 months later as Marcos ordered the release of the 17 remaining detainees, including Reca, showing the power of movement, especially in the brutal times of the Marcos regime.
Sa atong paghandom sa martial law, kining mga istorya sa mga biktima ang atong pagabitbiton nga magpahinumdum kanato sa mga adlaw sa kadulong ug pagpakigbisog. Ang ilang mga istorya nga kaniadto gipahilom karon nagbarog isip usa ka gamhanan nga tawag sa paghinumdum sa nangagi, pagpadayag sa mga tinago nga kamatuoran ug pagsukol sa mga puwersa nga naghulga sa atong kagawasan. Ang ilang mga tingog bisan pa sa pagkahugno magpabilin nga usa ka masilay nga syagit sa paglaom ug kaisog. Ipakita nato ang mga istorya aron mapukaw ang atong pagpanaw sa kagawasan ug mga katungod. listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Tagubtob sa kamatuoran. Remember, reveal, resist. Ato ang pagapaminawon ang mga sugilanon sa mga biktima nga miharap sa mga adlaw sa kahadlok ug pangdaog-daog sa martial law. Ang ilang mga kasinatian nagpadayag sa tinuod nga nahitabo ug pinaagi sa paghandom sa ilang mga sakripisyo. Dili lang nato atubangon ang brutal nga mga kamatuoran sa atong kasaysayan, kundili gipamatud-an usab nato ang atong pasalig nga lig-ong mubarog batok sa bisan unsang matang sa pagpanglupig. Karon, paminawon ka nato ang istorya o kaagi ni Lourdes Unabia Barcenas.
September 23, 1972 marked a turning point in her life when Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law. Her husband, Mokring, and her were in Cebu City, shocked by the sudden news. Shortly after returning home, PC soldiers arrived to arrest her husband. She insisted on accompanying them, and the ride to Cebu City felt endless. Along the way, she tried to inform Governor Osmundo Rama about
Kalino, kasadya, kadasig, sa pinalibugan sa Cebu, kami ang nakakaloka, crazy local fight. Crazy local fight.
She juggled her duties as a teacher, caring for their 1-year-old daughter, Ligaya, and visiting Mokring every day for at least 5 minutes under strict supervision. During that time, she was also pregnant and due to deliver her son. On October
What's up, Miss Scholars? We are coming back with a bang! It's another academic year and we have plenty of surprises awaiting just for you. This is me, DJ Mitz, for Season 3 of NKKLKL Crazy Local Facts, where we uncover Cebu's hottest spots, hidden gems, and must-visit locations in the heart of Cebu.
That's right, it's me, DJ Mitz.
rice meal, sir, diba?
What's up, mga iskaras ng bayan? You're once again tuning in to NKKLKL Crazy Local 5. Ako di ay si DJ Christy, the always alive, alert, awake, and enthusiastic kumare bisan pa og seryoso ang topic nato karong adlaw. Together with my co-host, who's always present and never absent ato mga lakwatsa. This special episode takes us back to the significant places that played a role during the martial law era, from historic landmarks to untold stories of resilience, We'll explore the hidden past behind these locations as we commemorate 52 years since that pivotal moment in our history.
Correct. I am DJ Precious. As we all know, this week we are commemorating the declaration of martial law 52 years ago. Ikalibang dekada na natong paghinumdom sa usa ka mabulukong kapitulo sa atong nasud-ang martial law nga puno sa kasakit, abuso ug kagubot. So gahapon no, within Cebu nga place ang gi-feature. Pero karong adlaw atong mahimamat ang lugar gawa sa atong Sugbo. So for today's Friday Finds, we will bring you back to the history time of two landmarks that serve a great memory way back those dark days.
Sakto jud ka, DJ Precious, and I cannot wait to share with you guys once again unsa ka mabulhanong istorya mahitungod niining lugar. But before we begin, don't forget to follow us on social media platforms, DYUP Sugbo, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter X at DYUP Sugbo. This way you can get behind the scenes, glimpses, and stay updated on upcoming episodes.
Yes, so now let's start the show by introducing our first highlight.
Only here on NKKLKL, discover the unseen, treasure the affordable. So now, for our first feature, we'll be talking about EDSA DJ Precious. So, for a very brief lang siguro na background context or its historical information, on February 22 to 25, 1986, the Filipino engaged in a collective action that the entire world took notice of. Does it ring a bell?
I think
well, I'm sure you guys have heard this already in your history classes, even way back in elementary or high school. I don't know with you guys, but this historic moment never fails to make me feel a sense of pride and awe. So, allow us to retell what happened that day. So, the EDSA Revolution, according to the Martial Law Museum, the name comes from the Epifanio de los Santos Avenue, where millions of Filipinos gathered together to peacefully express their rejection of the Marcos regime and all its abuses over the past few decades.
So, in the dictator Ferdinand's place, the people rallied their support behind Corazon Aquino, widow of the late Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino, whose assassination 3 years prior had galvanized ordinary Filipinos into action.
In this 24-kilometer EDSA, Filipino citizens, including basic sectors and even the church sectors, collided all together to go against the political repression and disastrous economic policies.
Prayers and rosaries strengthened by faith were the only weapons that the Filipinos used to recover their freedom from President Ferdinand Marcos' iron hands.
Another thing is that ginatawag ni siya og first non-violent quote-unquote bloodless revolution that ever took place in history. Did you know why? Kay bisan pa sa presensya sa mga sundalo nga nagsakay sa mga tangke ug mga dagkong armas, wala giusa nga pusil ang gipabuto.
So, fun facts. EDSA 1986 is the father of people power revolutions, notably in Eastern Europe and Asia. Martial Law Museum. The EDSA People Power Revolution served as a blueprint for other peaceful uprisings during the third wave of democratization. Countries like, how do you pronounce this?
Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia.
Okay, that's it. East Germany and others in Eastern Europe demonstrated that the EDSA-style people power was an effective means of overthrowing authoritarian and totalitarian regimes.
Yes, and actually dili kay siya fan facts, but like more of a facts lang jud siguro. The EDSA Shrine, a modest church situated at the crossroads of Ortigas Avenue and EDSA in Quezon City, is famous for being the location of the significant protests that led to the downfall of Ferdinand Marcos in 1986.
But, it was not only in 1986 that there had been a mass gathering on EDSA. Adunay nahitabo nga massive gathering usab kaniadtong January 2001 kung diin nagkahinusa sa maong higayon ang mga Pinoy aron mapahawa sa pwesto si President Joseph Estrada ug mao kini gihatag nga EDSA 2 o EDSA 2.
Yes, and after that, The whole world rejoiced with the Filipinos. In fact, Bob Simon, an anchorman at CBS, said, quote-unquote, "We Americans like to think we taught the Filipinos democracy. Well, tonight, they are teaching the world."
Wow. So about the exact location, EDSA specifically means Epifanio de los Santos Avenue is a major thoroughfare in Metro Manila, Philippines. It stretches approximately 23.8 kilometers and runs through several cities including Quezon City, Mandaluyong, Makati, Pasig, and Pasay.
And now, for its current condition, as of the latest updates, EDSA is known for its heavy traffic congestion. Really, a common issue due to its role as a major thoroughfare connecting key cities in Metro Manila. Meron namang mga efforts to alleviate such congestions through traffic management and infrastructures, pero it remains a challenge because such urban developments and projects can still impede traffic patterns and so on. There are also reports actually that address or highlight its environmental or societal issues, leaning more on the challenges related to pollution, noise, and the need for better urban planning to accommodate the growing population of Metro Manila. So that's our facts, DJ Precious, about EDSA, right?
Yes. So, ikaw ba? Why do you think so now? We have to remember this one.
Because it is really a very important event na maka-enlighten gali sa atong Jud Filipinos most especially.
And I think that's it for this episode. Pero maghati lang sa gamay na dyan, like na short break for us. And we will continue discussing it a moment later.
Once upon a confession.
Wala man jud kay marantan sa akong feelings. Oy, I don't know sad. Asa mga yung advice? Oble! Help me!
Psst! Iska! Got something to share? Need personal advice? Don't worry. We got your back. Kay diri sa Dear Oble, you are heard. Pwede ka makasubmit og entry and be one of our chosen anonymous senders. Catch Addie and Daisy, and Ruth and Shiara as we chika mapa-social, love, akads, or life in general while Oble listens.
Oble? Mao ba? Is this really true?
Oh yeah! Dear Oble, your avenue to be heard, one confession at a time.
We're back, lovies! So karon ang ato na sa feature no kay ang bantayog ng mga bayani. Another significant landmark in Quezon City is the Bantayog ng mga bayani. This monument stands as a solemn tribute to all the heroes who suffered under the Marcos dictatorship. The Bantayog houses a wall of remembrance where the names of those who fell victim to abuses during martial law are inscribed.
Yeah, so those who are familiar with this, naalam po the additional historical information. So this is unveiled on the 30th of November 1992. The Wall of Remembrance has always been a forever living testament to the countless Filipinos who have sacrificed their lives for us to be free from the dictatorship. Now that we're commemorating the 52nd anniversary of the proclamation of martial law, may we, the youth, forever remember the people's struggle against repression.
So after the people had won to oust the Marcoses from power during the People's Power, Dr. Ruben Malar, usa ka film na doktora, led the establishment of a memorial to honor and immortalize the identities and significant contributions of the martyrs.
Yeah, so asa di ay ni na-locate ang ato ang Bantayog ng mga bayani? Well, glad you asked, kay the Bantayog ng mga bayani Foundation Office is located at the San Jovito R. Salonga Building, Bantayog Center, Quezon Avenue, Diliman, 1109 Quezon City, Philippines. But for us who are living here in Cebu, far from where it stands, we can get updates on their websites and social media accounts. Just search bantayogngmagabayani.org and follow Bantayog ng Mga Bayani on Facebook and Instagram.
So, Going back to my question earlier, why do you think martial law is significant to remember?
Yes, we commemorate Jud martial law because daghan, especially desaparecidos ang nawala nga kinahanglan nato i-bring to light ang ilahang stories because these real people who are now lost needs to be found, needs justice, and we the people who are alive today, the people who have voice, have the power to really share their stories and give justice to them.
And naka-remember ko last year, no, ang ilahang pirme siya agad kay never forget, never forgive.
Yes, never again, never forget. Because dili man jud nato siya dapat kalimtan gyud, DJ Precious, right? Because of all the injustices, of all the atrocities that we Filipinos have been through, dili siya pwedeng ilubong na lang sa kalimot.
Bitaw, I do believe na for us to be able to continue sa atong present lives, kay dapat kay bawta sa pakitabo sa past. Like, dili na to kalimtan yun basta-basta lang ang tanan. Kay unsaon na to pagkat-on o pamaayo, kalimtan na rin nato ang mga panghitabua.
Tinuod, DJ Precious. Actually, it's nice nga mong giingon nga mura kay kinahanglan ta mo immerse with ourselves. Kay mga nakaka-local, mga scholar ng bayan, actually, natay 1081 exhibit happening from September 19 to 22. So, makisalmot ta, mo appeal ta para mas dagan pa tong makatunan about the martial law kasi it's really a very relevant issue nga kinahanglan ta ma-enlighten.
Let's embrace ourselves sa mga nganing panghitabua para dili ta late sa update, diba?
Yes.
Like, basin, wala na hito mo na like, gipanganak ka sa kaning kalibutan, yung waka kay baon sa ikuan. Mga history ba ron, sa ba yung mga panghitabo in the past, like, part man siya as kuan, ma-feel ni mga patriotism bitaw. Bilang isang Pilipino, dapat kay baon majud ka na.
Even if nahitabo na siya 52 years ago, bisan mo anak ka nga, ay, wala man ko na napanganak pa ato.
Bitaw, wala man ko nasakiti anak, kay wala pa man ko to nga time.
Tinuod.
Kasi pakinako.
Tinuod. I think we have to detach from that kanang mindset gani. Kay mura siya og unang dili kaayot ang pag-enlighten siguro ang best way to have a Filipina progressive jud.
True. So,
yes, and moto very fruitful, very heavy gamay ang ato ang topic karon.
Pero any last word for today's topic? For today's episode, rather.
Yes, for today's episode, although regardless of how cliche it is, never again, never forget. Yes, so I think that ends our episode today featuring Edsan Bantayog ng mga bayani. So ikaw, DJ Precious, na ba kay one last line?
Ibangon na dyan ya. But said, never forget, and I don't think never forgive because as human, we should forgive.
Okay.
But nonetheless, it's all about remembering everything from the past, present, and future for us to become a better person.
Yes, tinood na. And for the better Philippines, actually, para mas mulambo ta jud. Kaya that's what we have been wishing for a very long time. So, actually, naday ko gana ni ask ni DJ Precious, nakato na ba ka sa bantayog ng mga bayani?
Wala pa, ikaw?
Wala pa sa ganahan kay kumuad actually. Kay naman ko dito ang mga nalista sa, actually ako nabawan kay mga desaparecidos and all that.
So you're quite curious about that?
Actually, kay wala, feel na ko it's monumental and very daghan ko og I just want to witness it, how it works.
Siguro ako, nahan ko ma-witness ang story sa kada Pilipino na nakuan.
Yes.
Usay lahaw mga kasakit ba ron? Or usay mga specific na panghitabo in the past. Would it be possible na may tabo pa ka sa future?
Wait, dili. No, don't let history repeat itself, guys. Let's learn from our lessons.
Yes, maong kinahanglan ni remember para dili na maulit.
Yes, mao nang kinahanglan ma-learn, mag-enlighten, mag-educate sa tong selves, most especially, guys. Kay mo na ang best way para the history won't repeat itself. Kaya we don't want to experience the same thing twice.
And I think it's the most important thing here is to continue to fight for our freedom and our right as a Filipino.
Yes, ang freedom. Ay, heavy kayo siya gamay, no?
Yeah.
Medyo bugat-bugat good siya. Pero bugat sa jud to nga panghitabo, dili to na siya i-underestimate kay very, once again, very importante na mahibaw-an og masayra nato ang katong mga panghitabo. So yes, now that ends our episode today, DJ Precious. We featured EDSA and Bantayog ng mga Bayani. Once again, we know these places are outside our Sugbo, but again and again, the grave importance to highlight these places today remains relevant because ika nga nila, history should not be forgotten. And if these places hold us to commemorate such significant events in our country, then who are we to easily forget, diba? So, never forget, diba?
True. As we all together remember the dark past, may we all have the courage as younger generations to always uphold the truth, retell the stories, resist the silencing of facts, and above all, debunk the notion of Marcosian fantasy and historical revisionist narratives.
Yes, I very much agree. Like, bugat niya agree. Sa maong rehimen, daghan ang nawalaan og kinabuhi, gipaantos ug gihatagan og hilom nga tingog. Kining pagsaulog, pagkumemorar, dili lamang aron paghinumdom sa mga trahedya, apan aron usab pagpasidungog sa kaisog, katapangan ug pagpaningkamot sa mga lumulupyo nga misukol sa pagkadiktador ug alang-alang sa kagawasan nga atong gisaligan karon.
And speaking of features, make sure to listen to Nakakalocal Crazy Local Finds every week to catch more of our exciting contents, adventures, and journeys, all while exploring every nook and cranny of UBEC.
Very well said, DJ Precious. So don't miss out on our next adventure, and remember to stay curious, stay local, and stay tuned to more of our segments right here on DYUP Sugbo. Until next time, this is DJ Christy.
And this is DJ Precious.
Signing off.
Stay curious, stay local, and stay tuned to Nakakalocal Crazy Local Finds.
Here we go, there's no stopping now. Can you hear the beat blasted out? Tune in here for a great surprise. Ride the airwaves and come realize.
There's a lot of learning, much to see. Come be updated here in UPC. Turn your radio on and find your way. DYUPC to save the day.
DYUP, kaubani mo. You will never be alone. Bringing you the hottest, latest in the zone. DYUP, kaubani mo. DYUP, kaubani mo. You will never be alone. Bringing you the hottest, latest in the zone. DYUP, kaubani mo.
Yes, we are on.
DYUP kauban nimo.
Bisan asa man kamo adto. Music o balita nga bago.
Adi akini para sa imo. Maski ikaw lang usa.
Daghan o bisag asa.
DYUP di kamyaan andang kang pagsilbihan.
There's a lot of learning, much to see. Come be updated here in UPC. Turn your radio on, you find your way. DYUPC to save the day.
DYUP, kaubani mo. You will never be alone. Bringing you the hottest, latest in the zone. DYUP, kaubani mo. DYUP, kaubani mo. You will never be alone. Bringing you the hottest, latest in the zone. DYUP, kaubani mo. Kauban mo.
Kauban mo.
Kauban mo. Kauban mo. DYUP. Kauban mo. UP naming mahal pamantas ang hirap ng tinig namin sana'y inyong dinggin. Malayong lupain aming mangarating, di rin magbabago ang damdamin. Di rin magbabago ang damdamin. Luntian at pula sa gisang magpakailanman ating pagdiwang bulwagan ng dangan. Umayon di tanghal, ibig at tapang, mabuhay ang pag-asa ng bayan. Mabuhay ang pag-asa ng
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, telas ng sinangalan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng bangaw, ay hinatang tula, kawin sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iingin, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Lumalang araw ng walang pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
This is 98.9 DYUP Sugbo, the official campus radio of the University of the Philippines, Cebu. DYUP Sugbo operates 3 hours and 30 minutes daily and is streamed online on DYUP Sugbo, our official Facebook page, and on DYUP Sugbo, UP Cebu's YouTube channel. Our radio booth is located in the radio room of the College of Communication, Art and Science Undergraduate Building at the University of the Philippines, Cebu, Burordo Avenue, Lahog, Cebu City. DYUP Sugbo is operated and maintained under the management of Gwyneth Antinga, Station Manager, along with Gabriel Emmanuel Sulamo, Assistant Internal Station Manager, and Rain Isabel Filizarta, Assistant External Station Manager. DYUP Sugbo is technically managed by its technical committee under the supervision of Caleb Josh Berandoy and Yeda Marie Lambujon. The technical heads, DYUP Sugbo's programs are produced and curated by the programming committee under the supervision of Franz Pauline Aberilla and Jarod Owen Eagle, the programming heads. DYUP Sugbo's official Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify accounts are run by the publicity committee under Steffi Erika Gakit and Stephen Cuevas. The publicity heads, DYUP Sugbo's records and documents are managed by Ritricia Llagas, Secretary, DYUP Sugbo's Executive Committee, Technical Committee, Programming Committee, and Publicity Committee are under the supervision of Sir Maurice Chete Villaester, DYUP's advisor. DYUP Sugbo 98.9, Kauban Nimo, is now signing off.
Here we go, there's no stopping now. Can you hear the beat blasted out? Tune in here for a great surprise. Ride the airwaves and come realize.